Hello and what's up, GSC Pokemon Challenges fam? How you guys doing? Episode 6 of the Morty Minimum Battle series, and we're starting to get to some really interesting Pokemon. I feel like we finally had a legitimate fail Pokemon last time in Slowpoke, as well as losing the channel member pick Wooper, though we did prove after that Wooper is the best Pokemon. Still, we're coming back today with tons and tons of challengers. Of course, we've got Farfetch'd, we've got Doduo, Dodrio, Dewgong, Muck, Cloyster, Houndour, Gengar, Hypno, Kingler, Exeggutor, Piloswine, Octillery, Mantine, Skarmory, Houndour, Houndoom, and of course, Donphan. Just 18 Pokemon that I think are going to be a very interesting set to try to get through here. Mostly I expect them to get through just fine, but who knows? There could be some surprises. On top of that, we are going to bring in quite a few channel member picks. This is going to be a very long episode. I'm just saying that right off the bat because we have had some brand new channel members come in. You might notice up there that we have added a Growlithe and a Tentacruel. On top of that, we've got Gastly, we've got Weezing that I promised last time. We have to do our little gunfish Remoraid in this one, and we've got Phanpy. So we've just got a massive number of Pokemon to get through, and honestly, I'm going to be very interested to see if all of those member picks can get through. I'm honestly not sure. And by the way, Wooper got into the OPTMs category because it was clearly OP in that full game solo challenge, but it is actually a fail Pokemon. But still, thank you very much to DADO Gosh for your continued support of the channel. With that, let's get into the action. Let's start off with the flying types today with our Farfetch'd. And picking up with our Farfetch'd here, we know Peck, Mudslap, Leer, and Headbutt. In theory, at least, we can go for some Headbutt strats against the rival in order to maybe get him to flinch a bunch of times. But Peck is probably our best move against Morty at this point. Honestly, not sure if this moveset's going to be enough. But after getting through the Kimono Girls nice and easy, we are ready to take our first shot at the rival. So let's just see if Farfetch'd can manage to get it done. I'm honestly just interested to see how much damage Peck actually does here against the Houndour. So first up, we're slower than Houndour. It goes for Curse. Oh, and I accidentally used Headbutt. Let's try to use Peck instead. And Peck is clearly going to take 2 hits here, so we're going to not get through with very much HP. Magnemite comes out next, and I think the best play is Mudslap, given that our other moves are resisted. But Mudslap is going to be a 2-hit KO. We do manage to knock it out, though. Zubat's out next. I'll go for Headbutt here. This is another 2-hitter. We get knocked out right there, but I mean, granted, we did use the wrong move, so I'm going to try this just one more time, just to see if we can get through with maybe a little bit better luck. Now, of course, that means we take 1 less curse against the Houndour, so we get to Magnemite with slightly better HP as we go for the Mudslap. It misses Supersonic. That's perfectly fine. Now against Zubat, let's go for Headbutt again. It's going to be a 2-hitter, but we get the flinch. Very nice. And now Croconaw comes out. I'm sticking with Headbutt here. It flinches, but without a critical hit, we're not going to get through at our current level. We just got cursed down. So I think this is a reasonable spot to go down to the lighthouse to get a couple extra levels and get that extra damage rounding threshold. Now, of course, at level 25, we will get access to the move Swords Dance. If we can get there for Morty, that might be the strategy because Swords Dance into Peck could actually deal decent damage. The problem is just that we don't really have a good way to get to level 25 for the rival unless we go rare candies, and I would much rather go for the overpowered TM than go for the rare candies at this point. I've mentioned it before. We've seen it in pretty much every solo challenge I've done here. You really want those rare candies for red at the end of the game, if at all possible. But now here back at level 23 against the rival, let's see if Peck does enough damage to get the 1-hitter on Houndour now. Of course, he still uses Curse, and we do not get the range, so we're gonna have to just use something else to knock him out the next turn. The Mudslap is still the strategy on the Magnemite. We don't want to take a Thundershock here. Now on Zubat, back to Headbutt, but we get a critical hit one-shot there, so we've got more HP going to Croconaw. Here I Headbutt it, it flinches. I Headbutt again, it hits a Leer, but that allows me to win. Like if he actually used a damage dealing move, he would have beaten us there. But no, clearly Silver is not smart enough. It's because he's actually RBY Pokemon challenges. So with that, let's make our way over to Morty's gym, where I guess we're just going to be spamming some Peck until we get to level 25, but I think we will get there and get access to Swords Dance in time for Morty. Maybe that makes Peck just completely OP. We'll just have to see. And sure enough, we even get Swords Dance here on the first trainer in the gym. I'm going to learn Swords Dance over Leer, because Swords Dance, unlike Leer, we set it up at the start of battle, we boost our attack stat, and we'll do more damage to every opponent who's upcoming, whereas Leer, you have to set it up on each opponent to lower their defense. So while, yes, defense drops and attack boosts are effectively the same thing in terms of damage calculations, we would much rather use Swords Dance and be able to just have it for the whole battle from there on. At this point, I think we just set up a Swords Dance and Peck and just one-shot Pokemon. So let's see if it works on Morty. So Morty attempt number 1, we're not going to be faster than the Gengar, that's for darn sure, but I'm still going to set up a couple Swords Dances here on the first Gastly. It's cursed, but I just want to make sure that I can like one-shot everything. So we one-shot the Gastly there, we outspeed the first Houndour and one-shot it. Gengar comes out, it goes for Hypnosis and it hits. That's pretty much all she wrote for this one. We're going to need to put that Mint Berry on. Still, with the Mint Berry, I think this is just a guaranteed win. So yet again, I'm going to set up a couple of Swords Dances here because honestly, I don't think we have anything to worry about after that. Once we're at +6 attack, Peck to destroy the Gastly. We're going to Peck on the Houndour. Gengar goes for Hypnosis, I think, but it doesn't matter. Even if it hit, we had a Mint Berry. Final Houndour comes out, it can do nothing, and it gets one shot. So honestly, Farfetch'd wasn't that bad. This Pokemon's actually kind of legit, and it could be that that Swords Dance is the key for getting through the rest of the game. We could Swords Dance and then use Mud Slap to try to get through Jasmine. Swords Dance with Peck is going to be more than enough for Chuck, I think. And even against Price with his Ice-type moves, yes, they're super effective, but Swords Dance into Headbutt, or if we really get desperate, Swords Dance into Return, I think we've got a strategy there. So honestly, that's pretty cool. Let's move on to our other Flying-type Pokemon. We've got Dodrio and Doduo to check in on. Now, Dodrio comes in already knowing Pursuit, which could help us here. We'll just have to see if it does enough damage against Ghosts. Otherwise, we're kind of stuck with the standard fare for these Flying-type Pokemon with Fury Attack and Peck. We're just going to have to hope it's enough to get through everything. But now with Level Up, we get to learn Tri Attack, and this is an obvious moveset upgrade. We can learn this over Fury Attack, get a nice same-type attack bonus, but also have the chance to get status on opponents. This could be a really strong move in the hands of this Pokemon. And it's even enough to just one-shot the Jolteon here, so we didn't even have to worry about electric type moves. This Pokemon might suddenly be really overpowered. Still, we don't have anything great for Ghosts, so we're gonna have to see if our moveset is enough here against the rival. I'm gonna go in and try him once, and if he's really not looking good, we'll go down to that lighthouse. So first attempt against the rival, I'm going to try Peck first on the Houndour. We did half, and then it knocks itself out with the Curse. Magnemite comes out next. We don't have anything great. I'm gonna go for Tri Attack here. We do over half to this Pokemon. Thundershock did a lot of damage, but then we knock it out the next turn. Out comes the Zubat. I just go Tri Attack and get the one-hit KO. And now Croconaw. Tri Attack does over half and paralyzes this Pokemon. We survive on 1 HP from the Watergun and knock it out the next turn. So no Lighthouse required. It is pretty darn close, but Dodrio beats the rival on the first attempt. So with that, let's make our way over to Morty's gym, where hopefully Peck just does enough damage to get us through all of these Ghosts. But again, if not, we'll simply go down to the Lighthouse in order to get a couple extra levels. And here via Level Up, we even get to learn the move Rage. Pursuit, I'm honestly not sure if that move's gonna actually be useful though. Really, the only argument for the move is to have something to use against like a rock type that we otherwise don't have any neutral or effective moves against. Honestly, I don't know. For now, I'm gonna forget Growl. Tell me if it's a mistake down in the comments, and let's get into this Morty fight. He of course leads off with his Gastly, which we one-shot with a Peck. Haunter's out next. Peck does over half. half. It knocks itself out after that with Curse. And Dodrio is 10 points in speed faster than this Gengar at the same level thanks to our max DVs. When we did about a third, it misses the first Hypnosis, misses the second Hypnosis, so we simply knock it out. We get to level 26 as the final Haunter comes out, and this Pokemon can't damage a normal type Pokemon, so we simply win. Morty, completely destroyed by Dodrio. And very similarly to Farfetch'd, we don't obviously have Swords Dance, but we're a pretty strong and fast Pokemon, so I think we're going to do fine against Chuck. We'll make our way over to Price first, I think, and then go back and fight Jasmine. Jasmine is the really questionable one, because just Mud Slap on its own, I'm not confident is going to be enough to get a Pokemon through. We might actually be banking on some Tri-Attack status in order to win that fight. Anyway, we'll just have to see how that goes. For now, Dodrio is moving on. And now Doduo, obviously being weaker than Dodrio, had to go with an overpowered move in the last section using Return in order to beat Whitney, and it's got the Mud Slap on. We will get access to Tri-Attack here, so that will give us another strong move. I will probably forget Growl for that. And then if we do learn Rage, I think we're going to have to forget Pursuit. We'll just see if it works out or not, but I think Tri-Attack is too good to skip, even with Return on the moveset, just because of the chance to get status. And I don't see a situation where we want to get rid of Mud Slap, since that's probably our only decent way of trying to get through Jasmine later on. And here, while Doduo is obviously not as strong as Dodrio, it does have still decent speed, so we are going to outspeed against the Haunter here, against Rival 3, even without going to the Lighthouse. So let's just test this out and see if we can manage a win. Now, of course, we do not know Peck with this Pokemon, so we're going to have to go Mud Slap here or Pursuit to knock it out. Let's just see if Pursuit finishes it off. It does, but it took 2 hits to get through that Pokemon there. Now we can go Mud Slap on Magnemite, and it hits the Supersonic, and we hit ourselves in confusion and then get hit by Thundershock. That was terrible luck on that Pokemon. He honestly shouldn't hit Supersonic that often after getting hit with a Mud Slap, but you know, it is what it is. But here, let's just test out our Pursuit against the Haunter instead. It still looks like this is a 4-hit KO. He went Spite turn 1, but now he goes Curse, so we still get through with no Curse damage on that Pokemon though, which is pretty nice. We do over half to the Magnemite. It misses Supersonic this time, so we knock it out the next turn. Out comes the Zubat. We'll go Return since it is the strongest move that we have. And now here on the Croconaw, technically Return is the stronger move. We did over half, so we knock it out on the next turn. No need to go to the Lighthouse. Granted, we are using Return in this section with Maximum Friendship on our Doduo, but it is possible to beat the Rival without doing anything too crazy here. But now the issue is that we are stuck using either Mud Slap, which is not a same type move, or using Pursuit in this gym. This is where this could actually get really hard. The one advantage that we have with Doduo is that because it is half normal type, it can't be affected by ghost type moves. So there are a lot of situations where these opponents aren't really using strong moves against us, and that might be our only saving grace here. Still, we basically don't one-shot anything, and I can't think of a move that we want to forget right now in order to get access to Rage, so I'm going to skip that move with this Pokemon. But I'm also thinking that we should just go down the Lighthouse with this one, because I don't see any way we're actually going to beat Morty at our current level, and we need to come get the Mint Berry anyway. So here it's time to try our hand at Morty. If we can't manage to beat him, I think the only strategy is to replace Pursuit with Hidden Power Dart. And honestly, that might not be enough. We'll just have to see. I will give the Mint Berry just to test this one out though, and maybe, just maybe, we can find a way through this. So of course, Morty leads off with his Gastly. We go for Pursuit. It only does about half. He goes Spite on us though, so we knock that one out with no damage and no Curse. Out next is the Haunter. This is going to be a 3-hit KO on this Pokemon. Goes Hypnosis turn 1 and then Curse turn 2. We've made it to the Gengar, and we are slightly slower than this Pokemon, but it misses the first Hypnosis. We get a critical hit from Pursuit that only did about a third. I'm going to switch into Mud Slap just to lower his accuracy with the Hypnosis even more. We don't quite get the 3-hit KO, but we do knock that Pokemon out. We're to the final Haunter. I'm going to go Pursuit, and I think we'd have to get a critical hit here in order to knock this Pokemon out. We do not get it, so we lose the first attempt. This does appear to be possible with a single critical hit though, so I'm going to try this a couple more times. But the fact of the matter was that on that first one, we did get a critical hit on the Gengar, so I think that we honestly just don't have a choice other than to go for that hidden power. So let's try this now with the stronger move. So here we use Hidden Power Dark. We get the one hit KO on the first Gastly. Haunter comes out next. We go Hidden Power Dark. We don't get a one hitter, but it curses and knocks itself out. We still have the Mint Berry as we go to Gengar. We wake up from the first Hypnosis. We do about a third with Hidden Power Dark here. We just really need it not to be able to hit Hypnosis. So I think the strategy is still to use Mud Slap turn 1 there, but after that, maybe we can go into Hidden Power Dark and get through. It turns out that Hidden Power Dark is a range though on the Gastly, so this time it just survived and used Curse on me. That is not what we wanted to see. Still, we managed to get through the Haunter just fine. Back to Gengar. Let's go for the Mud Slap as we wake up from the first Hypnosis. And now we have to hope that we can manage to knock it out. Unfortunately, it puts us to sleep again, and that's all she wrote for that one. So we need a good range against the first Gastly, as well as not taking too many Hypnosises from the Gengar. Next attempt, we are to the Gengar without taking any damage before this. We are cursed from the Haunter this time, but we used one Mud Slap to reduce the accuracy of Hypnosis, and now we can recover from another one, and we're just going to need to get the luck to knock that Gengar out. We make it to the final Haunter. Hidden Power Dark does about half. We just survive from the curse. That means that we win with 1 HP remaining. We actually managed to get through Morty, but it takes Hidden Power Dark to do it. So that's kind of sad that we had to go for the Hidden Power there, but without Peck, we were at a pretty big disadvantage. Still, Tri-Attack is technically a lot stronger than Peck against basically everything in the next section. Like, even when you think about a super effective Peck, it's still a situation where that would be like, what, 105 base power? Return is stronger than that in the hands of a same type attack bonus without a resistance from our opponent. So honestly, Peck wasn't going to carry us through the next section, probably just hurt us a little bit here on the Morty section. So with Farfetch'd and Dodrio beating Morty completely legitimately and Doduo getting through with the hidden power, putting it in that OPTMs category, it's time to move on in this challenge. And I want to take a little step back to look at a Pokemon that we would have already skipped up to this point. Let's see how our new channel member pick Growlithe does in this part of the game. Now, picking up here with Growlithe in Azalea Town, we previously had issues beating rival number 2. Fortunately, new channel member Kanbei has come in. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'm pronouncing it like you would say in Japanese. But he has decided to give this Growlithe a second chance. The Fire Fluff is here, and we have taught this Pokemon Fire Blast, and I took a little bit of liberty here by also giving it Crunch. Crunch will be a stronger move against the Croconaw, so maybe it gives us a chance. And it could also give us a special defense drop that in theory could make our moves a little bit stronger. I haven't added on any TMs up to this point, just those 2 moves that we added on at the beginning of the game, as well as Ember and Bite to round out our moveset. I'm not sure how this is going to go, but I'm going to test this out against the rival. So here against rival number 2, I'm going to go Fire Blast on the first Gastly. We do get a 1-hit KO there. Now against Croconaw, it does massive damage, and while we did recover with a berry, obviously Fire Blast doesn't do that much. We did about 12 damage there, making that a 5-hit KO. Let's see what Crunch does instead. About the same, but it gets a special defense drop, and that's the reason I wanted that move. I think it just gives us a better shot. So let's test this out. If we go for Crunch instead on that Croconaw, can we manage to get through? So this time we get to Croconaw without any status, and again we did about 12 damage there. We're really hoping to get that special defense drop on it, and we are in a speed tie, which theoretically means this Pokemon could have a chance. We just don't get the luck that time. Now, of course, if we can win the speed flip, we can also get flinches, but it just doesn't do enough damage to get us through that Pokemon. So I think this is really about speed flips and getting that special defense drop like we got this time, it goes for Rage this time against us and we get a critical hit. So one more hit should knock the Croconaw out. We're down to 1 HP, but we do manage to get through. Now I think Fire Blast on the Zubat. It does not get the one hitter. It gets it all the way down to 5 HP remaining, but we would have needed a crit here and Bite simply ends us. That was terrible. That was so close too. So I think the only way to get through here is to still get a critical hit on that Croconaw and get a special drop there so that we actually are doing more damage with Crunch as well. Here we get another critical hit to knock Croconaw out. We do not level up though. I'm going to go for Bite trying to get the flinch. I get the flinch. Now I can go for Fire Blast and we do beat Zubat. So man, oh man, that took a ton of attempts, but Kanbei does manage to get through rival number 2. Now honestly, if that wasn't working, the other strategies that we could have gone for are things like, of course, max power return, but I was also thinking about Sunny Day in order to both boost my fire type moves and to dampen the water type moves. Maybe that could help, which would, at least in theory, have allowed us to progress without having to go for another overpowered TM move. Still, we managed to get through just fine there, so we can progress in the game. But with that, we can now make our way over to Whitney's gym, and it's just a question if we can manage to beat her or not with our current moveset. Dig is also available as a strategy to break up the rollout if we need it, but let's just see if we can get her as is. So first up, we've got the Clefairy. I'm going to go for Fire Blast here. It does about half, so 2 Fire Blasts to knock that Pokemon out. We have made it to Miltank, which is faster. Apparently cows are now faster than dogs. Don't ask me why, but we can go for Fire Blast. We get the burn, very nice. And with that, she also misses one of her rollouts and we can start going for Crunch here. She's going to Milk Drink, of course, because she's getting on lower HP, and she does manage to knock us out. I did not use the Goldberry there, so that could be the strategy to get through here. Next attempt, we are back to the Miltank, and again, we're hoping for that burn here. We do not get it, and she hits another rollout, and here she does miss a rollout and then stomps us down because we just didn't quite do enough damage. I came in with one of my Fire Blasts already used against this trainer right here, so I'm actually going to go out and heal real quick, because if we had one more Fire Blast and it hit, I think we would have won there. It is clear that we'll need the Goldberry in order to survive against 2 rollouts, but I think we can rely on that luck. And while yes, the accuracy of Fire Blast isn't 100%, it still hits most of the time, so it might work. So this time we get to the Miltank on full health with 3 rollouts still available. We hit the first one, but then it just knocks us out on the next turn. We actually need to take just a little damage from that first Clefairy to be able to heal up. So we're hoping for like a 2-hit double slap in order to get just a little damage so that rollout will then allow us to heal after the first hit. So this time with just a little damage on, rollout hits us, but we burn the Miltank this time and we get a heal with the berry. It's of course still stuck using rollout, but we miss a Fire Blast there and the next rollout ends us. So really we need either a rollout miss or a critical hit in order to get through this Miltank. Technically 1 critical hit is fine with me, so if that's the luck that we actually need, we will take it. Here we get a rollout miss, which is perfectly fine, but we took no damage from that first Pokemon, so we simply get knocked out on the next hit. Outside of a burn, we were going to get knocked out there. Here we get the rollout miss and we burned her, so we managed to finally knock out the Miltank. It took a ton of attempts though. That definitely wasn't a super consistent fight. We still did manage to get through though, so Whitney is technically done. We can now move on to Rival 3 and Morty. Now of course our big disadvantage here is being in the slow level up group, but because we have Crunch, it's better than getting Hidden Power Dark. Theoretically, it should be pretty good against the ghosts. We'll just see if we have to go to the lighthouse or not, but I'm going to try to get through with my moveset as it is for a start. Now the issue here is that we're actually struggling against the Vaporeon, so I think I'm just going to go down to the lighthouse and see if I can manage to beat those trainers. But let's take one attempt against rival number 3 first, since technically we should have a better matchup against everything here except for his Croconaw, but even then we can try to use some Quick Claw strats to maybe get through. So first things first, we've got to try to take down this Haunter. I'm just going to go Crunch and get the easy one-hit KO there. Croconaw comes out next, and we are faster than this Pokemon, so we can go for Bite, hoping for flinches. Still, Watergun is just going to do way too much damage here, and we simply lose. Granted, maybe without Curse, we could have gotten through that, so I'm going to test this out just one more time. Basically, I just want to see what the range is if we do get the Quick Claw to activate and use Crunch. And it turns out it is not a one-hit KO, it's a two-hitter. A critical hit would one-shot the Haunter, but Quick Claw plus critical hit, that's a bit too much luck. So I'm simply going to give up on this. Let's go down to the Lighthouse for a minute and see if we can gain an extra level or two. So we're now coming back to the rival at level 21. Let's just see how this range looks now. So now against the Croconaw, if we go for Bite, we're doing 13 damage, which actually makes this a 6-hit KO. We just barely would not get a 5-hitter. Crunch isn't doing that much more, and we simply get knocked out. Still, I think maybe with a moveset improvement, we can actually get through here. I'm going to try two moves here. I'm going to try adding on Headbutt over Ember. Obviously, that gives us a neutral move that also can flinch our opponent. And I'm going to learn Dig over the place of Bite. The idea, pretty simply, is that maybe Dig can one-shot against the Haunter if we just get the Quick Claw to activate, and then we can go into Headbutt against that Croconaw, and maybe that's enough. This time we get licked by the Haunter, but Dig is not a one-hit KO, so again, we would still need a critical hit here. Now we can go into Headbutt on the Croconaw, and we did 17 damage though, which means this is a 4-hit KO with this move, so if we can just get the right flinch luck, we could theoretically win here. This time we actually managed to get through Haunter with no Curse, because it went Lick and Spite against us. So now we're on really good health going to the Croconaw, thanks to the Quick Claw activating. Still, we're taking a lot of damage, but we get the flinch right there. That's exactly what we needed. Now Zubat, I'm going to go Fire Blast, and we get the one-hit KO. Magnemite comes out. I'm just going to use Dig since it's 100% accurate and we're faster. The 4x super effective move one-shots that Pokemon. So we actually do manage to get through. It's not pretty, but hey, Kanbei, you have managed to beat rival number 3. So with that, let's go back and try that last Kimono Girl and then the randos inside of Morty's gym. I'm hoping then that between Crunch or Dig, we've got enough to get through the gym leader himself. And here against the Vaporeon, I'm just going to spam Headbutt. It looks to be a 3-hit KO, and since we are faster, barring a critical hit, we will win. Very nice. We finally managed to get through. Still, we can definitely see that Growlithe's lower stats are really putting this Pokemon at a disadvantage. If only it were the legendary Pokemon, it would clearly do perfectly fine here, but you know, it's making progress at least. So now it's just time to take on Morty. We could go Mint Berry, we could go Quick Claw. I'm gonna try the Mint Berry first, just because I find most of the time that's the better strategy here. And let's just see if we can manage to get through Morty or not. So first up, of course, we've got the Gastly. I'm just gonna go for Crunch here and get the easy one-hit KO. Haunter's out next. We crunch it, and that is a one-hitter as well. Out comes the Gengar. It hits the first Hypnosis, but we go Crunch doing half damage. It hits another Hypnosis though, meaning we're basically gonna lose this first attempt. Still, if we can just get one Hypnosis miss here, I think we're in business. Here we get the Hypnosis miss turn 1. We recover with the Mint Berry turn 2, so we've gotten through Gengar as we get to level 25. We've still got 2 crunches in the bag for the final Haunter. It does take 2 hits, and he even goes for Spite on us, but we can just use Dig to knock him out, and just like that, Morty goes down. He was nowhere near as hard as Rival 2, Rival 3, or Whitney for this Pokemon, and we're just gonna have to see how it goes, Kanbei. Definitely we're gonna want to take on Jasmine early, since Dig and Fire Blast are gonna be good in that fight. It's gonna be very questionable against Chucky Boy, so basically I think we go Rocket Hideout, Jasmine, Price, then back to Chuck. We'll see if it works out or not, but for now, Kanbei, thank you so much for joining the channel membership and supporting, and also supporting the unevolved form of my favorite Pokemon. I appreciate you coming and rocking with the team. And of course, if I had been thinking, I would have done that in a set with Houndour and Houndoom. So what the heck, let's just get to them right now. The dark fire type Pokemon, the other doggies. Let's see if that Houndoom can just completely crush this section of the game. Now, Houndoom comes in knowing Headbutt, Leer, Mudslap, and Ember. Of course, if we go Hidden Power Dark, it's going to be a same type move, which will definitely be good on this Pokemon. We do get Bite at level 20 though, and that could also be pretty good given that it's the same type move, and we have at least decent special attack here. So let's just see if this turns out to be enough. And here I'm just going to go ahead and learn Bite over Leer so that we have the same type move. We've got nice coverage overall with all of our different moves. I want to keep Mudslap just because of the fact that we can't learn Dig, but we'll see if it is ever actually useful or not. For now, let's go ahead and make our way over into the Rival 3 fight with Houndoom and see if we can manage to get it on the first attempt. Otherwise, we will make our way down to that lighthouse to gain some extra levels. The slow level up group is the biggest thing that makes me nervous whenever I see a Pokemon. I just always think that maybe they will struggle, but let's find out. So first things first, we are faster than the Haunter here, and I'm going to go for Bite. We get the one-hit KO, so it easily goes down. Croconaw is out next. I'm going to go for the Headbutts here, since technically I think Headbutt is stronger, but I don't know. It has lower special defense than special, so I guess maybe Bite might be the actual play. We survive just fine against the Watergun and knock it out in 3 hits. That brings out Zubat. I'm just going to stick with Bite here since it's the same type move. Or we get confused, but we knock it out the next turn. And that brings out the final Magnemite, where I think the only play is Mudslap. It's not a one-hitter, but it is a 2-hitter, and we get through on the first attempt against our rival. So we can come free the legendary beast Pokemon and come talk to Eugene, who's going to get super excited about that Suicune. And with that, it's time to get straight into Morty's gym. I don't think we need any additional battles with this Pokemon, thanks to our same type attack bonus and Bite, but let's see if we get one-hit KOs or not. Now, as we come into Morty, we're actually 1 point in speed faster than the Gengar, which is a pretty massive deal because it means Bite could just flinch the Pokemon and we win that way. So let's see if this is enough. I'm not even going to put on a Mint Berry because I haven't gone out west yet. So yeah, maybe we can just get through as we are. First up, we've got the Gastly. Bite is a one-hit KO. Out comes the Haunter, which we are also faster than, and we one-shot. Now the second Haunter comes out. He's clearly scared to put out the Gengar, so we just one-shot that Pokemon. We get to level 24. Now the Haunter is out, and we don't get the one-hitter, but we get a flinch, guaranteeing a win with no damage taken. Morty never stood a chance there. So unlike the Growlithe, Houndoom completely destroys this entire section of the game. We're ready to check in on Houndour and see if it has a chance or not. Now, of course, Houndour had to go for Fire Blast in the last section, so we're going to have a stronger same type move, but we're also going to need to get to that Bite if we're going to have any chance here. Who knows? Just because of our lower stats, this could be a Pokemon where 1, we have to go to the Lighthouse, and 2, we might actually end up needing Hidden Power Dark, which is just a little bit stronger in this section of the game. But the real disadvantage of this Pokemon is obviously going to be speed. That's the part that I'm most worried about. And now we have another Pokemon that really struggles against Vaporeon, but thanks to Headbutt flinching twice in that battle, we did manage to get through. Otherwise, that Vaporeon would have beaten us at our current level, and we would have needed to go grind levels again, just like with Growlithe. So definitely Headbutt is the key to getting through those water type Pokemon. That makes me pretty nervous for the rival. I will test him out one time just to see with a Quick Claw, because I want to see how much more damage we do in this situation where we have a same type attack bonus in a move like Bite. Granted, we actually need to get access to the move Bite, which we did not quite get because we didn't fight this trainer. Okay, so let's try this one so that we actually get our move. And there we do get a level up and get Bite. So I'm going to learn Bite for now over Ember. Since we have Fire Blast, I think this is the way to go. And now let's see if with the Quick Claw, Bite is enough to one-shot that Haunter. This time we get Lick instead. instead, and we can see that we just don't quite get the one-hit KO. It might be a range here against this Haunter. Honestly, I don't know, so I'm going to test this just a couple more times, but we probably do get the range if we just go down to the lighthouse. But based on this next attempt, it actually looks like maybe we got a really good damage roll the first time, because he has 7 HP remaining this time, so we're probably not going to be able to one-shot at our current level. So let's go down to the lighthouse and see if an additional level does the trick. So back again at level 21, let's see if we can manage to beat the rival now. I'm just going to reset a few times until I get that quick claw to activate. This time we do get it, and we get the one shot on the first Pokemon. Croconaw is out next. We're going Headbutt. It doesn't do that much, and we take a critical hit from Watergun, so we're clearly going to lose, but this looks like a 5-hit KO with Headbutt. Let's see if Bite gets us a better range. So we get another attempt where we only got Lick from the first Haunter, meaning we get to Croconaw on good health. We can go Bite this time. We get the flinch, and Bite does 20 damage here, so it's a 4-hit KO, but we get a second flinch there, so now Watergun will not knock us out. We managed to take down that Croconaw. Out comes the Zubat. We get a flinch there, so we knock it out on the next turn, and the Magnemite, we can go Fire Blast, which is super effective and gets a 1-hit KO. So we do finally manage to get through the rival. It's not super pretty there. Gonna have to get a pretty good range to either get the one-hitter on that first Haunter or get something like Lick and then a Quick Claw to activate so that you can knock it out that way. Theoretically, there are multiple ways to get through that Pokemon at least, so I will just keep this one, but it's probably not that consistent. Probably Hidden Power Dark with the additional power is the actual way to get through there more consistently, because then I think on max DVs you're going to be able to get the one shot consistently against that Haunter as long as you get the Quick Claw. Anyway, that brings us into Morty's gym, so let's just beat up on a bunch of randos and then try the gym leader himself. And as we come into Morty, I'm going to switch to a Mint Berry just because I think this is the best strategy. We should outspeed, I think, against the Haunters, but not against Gengar. Let's see if this is going to be enough with Bite. So first attempt against Morty, we go Bite on the Gastly and get a 1-hit KO. Haunter number 1 comes out and also gets one shot. Haunter number 2 comes out and gets one shot. That means we're to the final Gengar. It goes Shadow Ball, which doesn't do that much, and Shadow Ball again. So apparently he just gave up. He was just like, I could try to put you to sleep, but it's clearly not going to work. So Houndour completely destroys Morty, and it gets to move on now in the game. The Fire Blast is definitely going to be good against Jasmine. We'll really have to see how this Pokemon does against Chuck's gym. Fire Blast should yet again get us through Price without too much issue, so it's just the weakness to fighting that we're going to have to worry about, I think. But we'll just have to see that in the next episode. For now, Houndour is moving on. So with all of our fire types now done, we are up to 68 Pokemon, beating Morty and rival number 3 on minimum battles. That is like nearly as many Pokemon as I was able to get through Brock on minimum battles in Gen 1. So far, really, Gen 2 is not looking nearly as hard through the 4th gym. That being said, though, I think the real challenges are coming up ahead. So we'll just have to see how these challengers do when we actually get to the real big bosses of the game. For now, though, let's move on into some other Pokemon. We have a ton of water and ice types here. Of course, we've got Dewgong, we've got Cloyster, both rocking the ice and water combination. And then we've got our pure water types in Kingler and Octillery. We've got our flying water type in Mantine, and we've got a brand new member pick in the poison water type that is Tentacruel. I'm very interested to see how all of these Pokemon are going to do, so I'm going to do them in one big set, and let's also get the channel member pick Remoraid in there and see if we can make a clean sweep of it, or is that Bayleaf going to prove to be a massive issue? Let's just kick it all off with that Dewgong and see, maybe ice type moves make this one trivial, but I think the difficulty will just increase as we move through all of these Pokemon. So here with our Dewgong, we're just running the basic moveset of Headbutt, Growl, and Aurora Beam. No new moves since the start of the game, but I think this moveset might just be enough. We have a good physical move to use against everything that's not a ghost, and we've got at least Stab Aurora Beam to use against ghosts themselves. So I think it's probably going to work out, but let's just see if we need to add any new moves. And after beating the Kimono Girls, we'll also get the HM3 for Surf, and we learned Rest while we were fighting them. So we've got plenty of decent moves, I think, to get through this section of the game, but I'm going to try to go with my moveset as it is and just see. Rest, I don't think adds that much to our Pokemon, because if we're under Curse, we're just going to take Curse damage every turn while we're resting. So I don't think it really adds anything at this point, but I do think it will be a really useful move when we get later in the game. So for now, let's try Rival 3 for the first time. I'm just going to go Aurora Beam on the Haunter. We are slower, and we do not get the one-hitter after Curse, so it takes 2 turns to take that Pokemon down. Out next, we see the Magnemite, and yet again, we don't really have anything good currently for this Pokemon. Headbutt and Aurora Beam are both going to be resisted. I'm going Headbutt for the chance to flinch, but we can see that's looking like it's going to be a 4 or 5 hit KO, and Aurora Beam's probably not doing that much more for us here. So we simply are going to go down after getting hit by a Sonic Boom. Obviously, there is a solution here though. If we add the move Surf, it will be stronger than both of these other moves, particularly against that Magnemite. So let's just throw on Surf here to avoid going down to the lighthouse for now. I'm going to forget Growl in order to learn this move. I think it's the best strategy, but again, tell me if you think that's a mistake. So now with Surf on the moveset, Surf is obviously significantly stronger since we're also a water type than our Aurora Beam. So I'm going to go Surf on the Haunter. It does about half, but that means that once Haunter uses Curse, it simply goes down. Out now comes the Magnemite again, but we'll go Surf, and that just barely misses getting a 1-hit KO. We can use anything to knock it out after that. Bayleaf is out next. We're going to go Aurora Beam. We do over half. We get Poison Powdered. We heal with our Berry and just use Aurora Beam again to knock that Pokemon out. Finally, Zubat. We go Aurora Beam since it's super effective. We get the 1-hit KO, and just like that, we managed to beat the rival without any real issues. So just slapping Surf on this Pokemon is the solution to get that one to go. And with that done, we can simply make our way into Morty's gym, where I think Surf is going to get us through all the randos with no issues. So it's just a question of how we do against Morty himself. So now for our first attempt at the gym leader, I'm just going to lead off with Surf against the first Gastly and get a nice easy 1-hit KO. Out next is the Haunter. We go for Surf. It is also a 1-hit KO. And now we've got the Gengar in front of us. I did not bring a Mint Berry for this, and we get put to sleep. So we're going to lose this first attempt possibly. Dream Eater didn't do that much, but it's doing about a third here. We do finally wake up and use Surf. It does nearly half, but then Shadow Ball was in the range to simply knock us out. So I'm simply going to pick up the Mint Berry very quickly, and that should allow us to get through that fight significantly easier. So back for round 2 against Morty, we're going to go for Surf again on the first Gastly and get the easy 1-hitter. Surf again on the Haunter, gets a 1-hit KO. Back to Gengar. It misses the first Hypnosis as we use Surf. We did over half. It misses the next Hypnosis, so of course we don't even use the Mint Berry that we just picked up and knock it out. Getting to level 26 as the final Haunter comes out, and it just barely survives, so we can just do anything at this point. It's never going to knock us out. We have beaten Morty in just 2 attempts with our Dewgong. And that is, of course, without even needing to go to the lighthouse, so we're going to get a bunch of extra levels from randos in the next section. And honestly, I think this Pokemon's going to do fine against Jasmine and Price, because we have a better moveset than Price's Dewgong. The problem is possibly going to be Chuck, given our weakness to fighting type moves. We might actually struggle in that gym. We'll just have to see. But for now, this Pokemon moves on. Let's now check on Cloyster. Now, Cloyster is also running Aurora Beam, but it also has Supersonic, Withdraw, and Protect. I think we're probably going to replace Supersonic here with Surf as a basic strategy. Protect and Withdraw could be useful. We'll just have to see. But honestly, here we have a major issue even with the Kimono Girls. Number one, Aurora Beam is resisted by 2 of their Pokemon, the Flareon and the Vaporeon, and we have a really low special defense stat, meaning that Ember, which is neutrally effective Negative does really good damage, and of course Thundershock from the Jolteon does major damage. It's one of those situations where the special split really affected this Pokemon pretty hard. So while we do finally get through the Flareon there, and I do think we can get through the Vaporeon, the Jolteon might just be impossible at this point. But here I'll test it out one time. I'm going to go for Aurora Beam, but Thundershock does more than half and paralyzes us, and then we just get knocked out on the next turn. So possibly a berry could get us through. We didn't get to see the damage range from Aurora Beam, but it's also possible that we simply can't win this fight. Yeah, it looks like Aurora Beam is going to be a 3-hit KO due to the fact that Cloyster doesn't have great special attack. So it's pretty clear that we either need to add a new move or we need to make our way down to the Lighthouse, which yet again, there are a lot of Pokemon there that resist our ice type move. So the other possibility is to add on the move Swift. Swift, of course, will use our slightly higher attack stat and at least do decent damage against neutral opponents. And that's really the only TM that we can learn at this point without going into OP TMs. And honestly, I think we're going to need a stronger move if we're going to be able to get through this section of the game. So for now, I'm going to forget Supersonic and add on Swift over the top of that, but I'm also going to go down to the Lighthouse and take on those trainers just so that I can get a little extra experience before I come back to that Jolteon. So sure enough, our Lighthouse trip was able to get us an additional level, and now with Swift, I think we have a better chance of getting through that Jolteon as well, but let's just see if that's actually the case. So here, I'm going to test it out. Swift against this Pokemon is going to do over half, so Swift will be a 2-hit KO, and we survive 2 Thundershocks now that we got that additional level. So just like that, we are finally able to beat the Kimono Girls, and we can get access to Surf. And here, I do think that Surf is the better play to have on our moveset. The question is just, do we want to forget any other moves? Now, for now, I'm actually going to forget Swift, even though I just learned it, because if we do want a normal type damage dealing move later in the run, we could just use the move Return, and I think that that's the best case scenario. Protect, not sure if it's ever actually seriously useful in the run. The only case I can think of off the top of my head is a grass type using Solar Beam against us, but who knows? I could find a situation where Protect is really valuable. So for now, Swift is going to go, and we're going to learn Surf instead. With that, let's make our way up here to the Rival and see if we can manage to get through this fight. So Rival number 3, attempt number 1, I'm going to go Surf on the Haunter. We do over half, and then it knocks us out with the Curse. Out comes Magnemite. I'm going to stick with Surf here. We do get the 1-hit KO on that Pokemon. Bayleaf is out next. I'm going to go Aurora Beam and get the 1-hitter with a crit. So we've gotten all the way to Zubat with no damage taken, and Aurora Beam will simply end it. We actually managed to beat the Rival on the first attempt. So with that, we can now make our way into Morty's gym. I think we're going to have a pretty easy time with the randos yet again, so let's make our way straight to Morty himself. So now Cloyster should outspeed everything except Gengar on this team. I'm going to just give the Mint Berry to be safe, and let's try this battle. So Morty attempt number 1, we just go Surf on the first Gastly. Yet again, it's a 1-hit KO. More of that Surf action on this first Haunter, which is also a 1-hitter. Out comes the Gengar. It misses the first Hypnosis. We do over half. It misses the second Hypnosis, so it simply goes down. We've made it to the final Haunter on full health, and again, we just barely missed the range to knock it out, but just like Dewgong, it was never in question. We beat Morty on the first attempt. So after a bit of struggle at the start of this section, we do actually end up beating Morty on minimum battles without any major issues, though unlike Dewgong, we did have to go to the Lighthouse and gain additional levels to complete this section. That makes me wonder how the member pick Tentacruel is going to do in this section, but we're going to have to backtrack a little bit on that Pokemon to see how it would have gotten here in the first place. So enter new channel member Rob with his Tentacruel named Squidward. And he has given this Pokemon a massive upgrade because on top of its normal starting moveset of Poison Sting, Supersonic, and Constrict, it also learned Ice Beam. Now this Pokemon actually had to use struggle strats in order to get through both the Falkner section and through Bugsy, and then just completely hit a wall on Rival number 2. But I'm going to go back to the beginning of the game with this one, number 1, because I didn't have a save file for it. part, but number 2, because I think that the move Ice Beam significantly changes this Pokemon in the early game. Starting off against Falkner himself, instead of having to go for Poison Sting and Supersonic strats and Constrict just being completely useless, we can go Ice Beam and one-shot the first Pidgey. We get to level 8 as the Pidgeotto comes out. We once again Ice Beam it. It goes for Gust. We Ice Beam a second time and knock it out. Falkner goes from being kind of random and difficult to being a pretty easy fight with this move. On top of that, Ice Beam makes the Slowpoke well far less tedious with this Pokemon because you can just 3-shot the final Coughing and easily get through that section of the game. And that now brings us into Bugsy's gym. And as we take on Bugsy, the thing is that yet again, Ice Beam is going to do massive damage. We freeze the first Metapod, getting a 2-hit KO there. Of course, Kakuna was never an issue because we resist Poison Sting and cannot be poisoned. But now when we get to the final Scyther, we yet again have a super effective move, doing over half with the first Ice Beam and knocking it out with the second Ice Beam. So that fight goes from being incredibly tedious and luck-based to being incredibly simple. You just spam Ice Beam until you win. But all of that was simply a setup to get here to rival number 2, where we failed previously. And it's time to see if Ice Beam solves that Bayleaf and gives us a chance to actually win this one. Now, of course, in the previous run, the only way we could affect this Gastly was with Supersonic and Poison Sting, but now we can go Ice Beam, and we don't quite get a 1-hitter, but it is a 2-hitter to take that Pokemon down. Zubat obviously is weak against this move, so it goes down in a single hit, and now Bayleaf is slower than our Tentacruel. We did nearly half. It goes Reflect because it's not going to knock us out with a Razor Leaf, and we simply knock it out on the next turn with a Ice Beam. So easy victory to get through that section of the game, and that means that now we can actually move on and see how Tentacruel does against Whitney. And while Tentacruel doesn't get a great moveset here by any means, we are getting closer to learning Acid. We probably won't get that until we get through Whitney, however, but we could also learn moves like Cut if we really need a normal type move in order to get some damage, as well as, of course, overpowered TMs like Return and Blizzard in this section of the game. So let's just see if it works out here against Whitney. Now, of course, reaching Whitney is no issue at all because Ice Beam is so incredibly OP for this section of the game. So the question is just, do we need to go for Freeze Luck here against Whitney, or are we going to be able to get through just fine? I'm going to come in with a Berry on first. We may give the Gold Berry later on, but I just want to see if we can get through without having to use the Gold Berry. Let's just test it out a couple times. So Whitney attempt number 1, she leads off with the Clefairy, of course. I go for Ice Beam. This is looking like a 4-hit KO on this Pokemon. So given that, I think Supersonic does make sense. We get the Clefairy to hit itself once in Confusion, and then we can knock it out with 2 more Ice Beams. Out comes the Miltank. I'm going to go for Supersonic on this Pokemon to hopefully get it to hit itself in Confusion and break up Rollout. I'm also going to go for Poison Sting, trying to get Poison on this Pokemon. We lose the first attempt, but I do think there's a reasonable chance to get through here. So back to Miltank again. Once again, we will go for Supersonic. Technically, we could do anything here. We can go for Ice Beam, trying to get Freeze as well. Once we get it frozen like this on the second attempt, it's still going to take 5 hits from Ice Beam to knock out, but we managed to beat Whitney on the second attempt just like that. And now the real thing that we need is just to get access to an actual water type move, and getting access to Acid, which will be significantly better than Poison Sting, should give us a chance in the next section. We're just going to have to see how it goes. But for now, I'm thinking that Rob did make the right choice by giving this Pokemon Ice Beam. Obviously, there are tons of ways to get the move. It's a tutor move in Gen 2, but because this is a Gen 1 Pokemon, you could have also just traded it to a Gen 1 cartridge and taught it the move Ice Beam there, which is a perfectly legit way to get access to the move without even needing to have a traded penalty with Disobedience. So no matter how you look at it, Ice Beam on a Tentacruel would have been a pretty reasonable thing to do in a full game solo challenge, provided that you allowed just setting up in another cartridge. Now, of course, the big difference between this Pokemon and, say, the Dewgong and Cloyster that we were just running is that because it is a water poison type, it's not going to be affected quite as much by things like Razor Leaf. It still is going to have to worry about things like Thundershock in this section though, so we're going to see if we do enough damage or not to avoid going down to the Lighthouse. And once we get to Acid, I'm actually going to learn this move over Constrict, because Constrict really doesn't have that much usefulness. Like, yes, it can lower speed, but honestly, we'd have better chances, I think, just using the Quick Claw in those cases. So I'm simply going to forget that move. Yes, I'm carrying Poison Sting and Acid at this point, just because Poison Sting could allow us to get chip damage on an opponent if we really need it. Not useful in this immediate section, and I'll probably end up just forgetting that move as well. But for now, I'll keep it on just so that we have that potential strategy. But now we have two Kimono Girls left that we do have a disadvantage against, the Espeon and the Jolteon. Since Espeon has good special defense, I'm going to go for Acid on this Pokemon. It's going to be a 3-hit KO, but because we are faster, we will win this fight without any major issues. And just like that, we make it to the Jolteon, which again has lower defense than special defense. So who knows, Ice Beam might actually do more damage here since our attack and special attack are even, but I think Acid is a perfectly fine move. We get a critical hit there and simply knock it out on the next turn. Of course, Acid does also have the chance to lower an opponent's defense, which could effectively make the move stronger as well. Now here we get access to the Surf HM, and I'm simply going to learn this move right away because we still have pretty trash moves on our moveset. Honestly, we're going to get Sludge Bomb later on, so I'm going to forget Poison Sting now, keep Supersonic. Maybe Supersonic strats are useful somewhere, but let's see if now with a same type move in Surf, we have a decent chance of getting through this next section. So it's time to take on rival number 3, Rob. Let's see how Squidward does. The first thing that we're going to do, of course, is switch Surf into the top slot, since anytime we have neutral damage from our moves, Surf is going to be the strongest. We outspeed the Haunter, but do not get the 1-hit KO. Still, it goes down nice and easy. Magnemite comes out next, where Surf just barely misses the 1-hitter as well. We're going to have to go Surf again to knock it out. We got hit by Supersonic, so we are confused, but we are moving on still. We hit ourselves in confusion against the Zubat the first turn and get a bite, but then we can use Ice Beam to knock this Pokemon out. We've made it to Bayleaf. I'll go for Ice Beam. We do over half, but Curse simply ends us on that attempt. Still, I think this is a winnable fight, so I'm going to try this again, because honestly, I think all we need to do is not get confused by Supersonic, and we're basically good to go. This time we get the Supersonic miss, so we can really do anything here and just knock that Magnemite out. We'll go Ice Beam now on the Zubat to knock it out. We've basically got 3/4 of our HP left as we get to Bayleaf, so Ice Beam does over half. It goes for Reflect, and we Ice Beam it down, meaning that we get through the rival on the second attempt. It might be a case where by going to the Lighthouse, you would end up just 1-hit KOing against that Magnemite, but it ultimately doesn't matter. You just need to not get confused and not hit yourself in confusion. Keep in mind that Supersonic is only a 55% chance to hit. I think even lower when it's used by your opponent, if I'm understanding correctly. And you're also only a 50-50 shot to hit yourself in confusion on a given turn. So it's pretty reasonable to assume that we could get the luck to get that to go most of the time. Now I am going to quickly grab the Mint Berry before I go and take on Morty, just because I think with our weakness to Psychic, he really is going to want to use Hypnosis and then go into Dream Eater on us with his Pokemon if he can. So the Mint Berry might be extra important in this one, since he's not going to be randomizing as much. At least that's my logic for this. So here we give Squidward that Mint Berry. Let's get into this battle and see if we can win. So Morty attempt number 1, we're going Surf on the first Pokemon. We knock out Gastly, no issues. Now Haunter, Surf is not quite a 1-hitter, and it goes for Curse against us. We are in fact faster than the Gengar, so we can go for Surf right here. We do just about half. It might be a range. He hits Hypnosis, but of course we wake up with the Mint Berry, and he survives with 2 HP. Still, we're going to be able to knock this Pokemon out. Gengar turns out not to be an issue since we managed to get 1 Hypnosis miss there. We make it to the final Haunter with 44 HP remaining, and we get the critical hit 1-shot. So we didn't have to worry about whether Curse plus Nightshade was going to knock us out. We simply win on the first attempt. So with that, let me just give a massive thank you to Rob for joining as a new channel member and saving Squidward here. And we now get the chance to see a pretty decent Gen 1 Pokemon continue in this challenge. challenge, where I think this Pokemon actually has a much better time in the next section than either Cloyster or Dewgong. Consider that because we're poison type, we're not quite as worried about fighting type moves. I think Surf is going to be enough to get through Jasmine, and Price, yet again, isn't really scary. Plus, we've got Ice Beam for when we get to Claire. I think we have a decent chance of getting through the gyms with this Pokemon, but we'll just have to see. And if you are somebody who is thinking about joining a channel membership, I'm proud to announce that I'm just about to release a website where you can check out all of the Pokemon that are currently available and make your member picks. A link to this website will be included in the video description once it is completed. I have just a little bit of back-end work to do, but you can do everything from seeing the perks, clicking to join the channel membership. We have, of course, a nice thank you to all of the people who have saved Pokemon so far. 28 of our 30 channel members do have picks in at this point, but this also gives you the ability to browse all available Pokemon. As you can see, there are 84 Pokemon currently available to be sponsored by channel members, and you can search any of these Pokemon. But if you want to know what moves they have available, simply give them a click and you can see the level up, TM, HM, egg moves, tutor moves, and of course, if they have a prior evolution, you'll see the prior evolution moves of that Pokemon as well. It's important to note that when it is an evolved Pokemon, egg moves will actually show under prior evolution in those cases. I'm working on getting Gen 1 TM moves and event moves added in. That's just going to be a separate project. But once you have a Pokemon that you really like and you've joined the channel membership, all you need to do is click any of these Make Your Pick buttons on the website. You will be able to verify your membership status via your URL from your YouTube profile page. Get a very nice thank you, set your display name to whatever you want it to be, select from any of the Pokemon that are currently available. Again, this still needs a little bit of work on this section. Choose a Pokemon, give it a nickname, and then you will get a set of egg moves, level up moves, TM moves, and if there's not a move that's listed here, but it's something from Gen 1 or an event, at this point you can simply select those moves from a list of all of the moves available in the game. Apparently we are making an Abra with extreme speed at this point. You can enter any additional details about your Pokemon, and once it's done, simply hit the submit button and you can send your member pick to me. Once this is completed, it will actually directly sync up with my overlay, allowing me to get your member picks in real time. A word of note, the channel members have to be registered by me manually. YouTube doesn't allow me to automatically do that for some reason. I actually contacted YouTube support about this and I simply could not get access to the API that I needed to get automatic updates to my channel members. So instead I'm doing a workaround. So if you get a message that you are not a member, in spite of the fact that you have joined as a member, shoot me a DM on Discord. But with that, if you are interested in a channel membership, no longer do you have to try to catch the Pokemon on the screen as I show them. You can pop over to that website and choose a Pokemon that you want to support. So thanks again to Rob for your massive support joining the channel membership. And with that, let's move on to our other water type Pokemon. And getting back to the action, we have Kingler, who knows Vice Grip, Fury Cutter, Bubble, and Harden. Obviously, Bubble is going to be one of the first moves to go since we're going to get access to Surf. And I think Crab Hammer's at high enough of a level that we don't need to worry about not being able to forget Surf with the move deleter. So I'll probably end up just adding that move on here pretty quickly. But of course, Kingler is primarily a physical attacker. So as much as possible, we're going to be wanting to use Fury Cutter and Vice Grip here. Still, neither of those moves are going to get us through these ghosts, at least not very efficiently. So I do think we slap on Surf before the rival. I'm still going to try him one time with some Fury Cutter strats though, just because maybe we can find a way through that Bayleaf with a powered up Fury Cutter. But otherwise, I do think Surf is going to be the play. So let's simply test this out first. Against the Haunter, attempt number 1, I'm going to try to set up Fury Cutter on this this Pokemon. We are faster, but we miss a Fury Cutter, and I think if we even miss one Fury Cutter, it's basically game over, since we would need to set up a lot of Fury Cutters to get through this Haunter. Being paralyzed is also probably a guaranteed reset on this one. We finally managed to get through the first Haunter. Out comes Magnemite, which again is gonna resist the move Fury Cutter, but it still goes down in a single hit. We get the Bayleaf out, which we outspeed in one shot with Fury Cutter. That brings us to the final Zubat. I'll stick with Fury Cutter just because it's all the way powered up. It misses a Supersonic, meaning we simply knock it out after that. So you don't need to go to the Lighthouse with Kingler. You're just not going to be very consistent if you're going for the Fury Cutter strat, because you need a lot of things to go right, specifically not missing and not getting paralyzed, because I think honestly if we were paralyzed there, the Bayleaf would just knock us out with Razor Leaf. Still, we did manage to get through. We've got Surf and Fury Cutter on the moveset to try to get through this next section. We could even go Mud Slap if we really need to, since at least Mud Slap is a physical move, though I think at that point we're just better off spamming Surf. Let's just see how this section goes. And now via level up, we actually get to learn Stomp, and I'm going to learn this move over Vice Grip because they're basically the same in terms of power, but Stomp of course has the chance to flinch an opponent, which I think will be a massive advantage as we go forward in the challenge. I think more and more flinch strats will be used in really tough spots in order to get victories. So with that, we have made it to Morty. Let's see if we can manage to get a victory here against this gym leader. First up, we've got the Gastly. We're just going to go Surf and get the easy one-hit KO. Let's stick with Surf on this Haunter, where it's going to be a two-hitter as he goes for Curse. Here we are slower than Gengar, but we can go for Surf. It doesn't quite do half damage there, so this is looking like a three-hitter. He misses two Hypnosises so far. Finally, he hits the third one though, and we simply go down. So it's pretty clear we need a Mint Berry, and we're going to need two Hypnosis misses on top of that Mint Berry. It's certainly not impossible, but we are going to have to get a little bit of luck here. This time we get no Curse from the first Haunter. We do get put to sleep by the Gengar though immediately and have to use our Mint Berry, and now we're just hoping for the two misses in a row. We do not get it, so now if we don't wake up, we're simply going down, and sure enough, we lose that attempt. Still, we could also get a critical hit to help us get through with one fewer Hypnosis miss from the Gengar, so I am going to reset for this for now, but we simply aren't getting the luck at this point. This time we do get the crit and a Hypnosis miss from Gengar, which allows us to simply knock it out on the next turn. So no Mint Berry even used as we get to the final Haunter. It goes for Nightshade, but it's not enough as we simply knock it out in 2 hits. So Kingler can get through that fight. It's definitely less consistent, but possible nonetheless. So that of course brings us to Octillery, which is coming in with Watergun, Return, Mud Slap, and Swift from the previous section. We're also about to learn a ton of moves with this Pokemon, since at level 22 we get to learn Psybeam, Aurora Beam, and Bubble Beam, and then we get Octazooka fairly soon after that. So this is a kind of rare Pokemon that's going to get a ton of new moves in this section. I think we'll keep Return and probably end up replacing everything else, but it's just a question of if these moves are powerful enough to get us through this section of the game. First things first though, we've got to get through these Kimono Girls and hopefully gain a couple levels before we go and take on the rival. So honestly, this might be a good Pokemon to actually go down to the Lighthouse with as well. We will also of course pick up Surf, but I'm kind of interested to see how these other moves go, so I'm going to avoid Surf for now and instead just route down to the Lighthouse. So first up, we get to learn Psybeam. I'm going to learn this move over Swift since it's redundant with Return anyway. Aurora Beam, I'm going to throw on over Mud Slap. And finally, Bubble Beam, I'm just going to add over Water Gun. And of course, Psybeam, while it is not a same type move, is super effective against ghost types, since they're also all poison types in this section of the game, meaning that we should at least have some pretty strong moves for everything at this point. It's just a question of if there's any opponent that's going to survive and deal significant damage back to us. With all of that being said though, we have a higher attack stat than special attack stat, especially because of the badge boost that we've already gotten from Falkner earlier in the game. So currently, Return remains basically our strongest move unless one of our other moves is super effective against an opponent. And even then, there could be situations based on their stats where Return is still the better move to use. But now that we've completed the Lighthouse and gotten a massive number of new moves, let's make our way into that Rival 3 fight and just see if we can manage a first attempt victory. So first up, we've got the Haunter. I think the only good play is to go Psybeam here. It goes Curse, of course, but then we knock it out on the next turn. Magnemite comes out next. Bubble Beam, being a same type move, is the best play there. We get a one-hit KO. Bayleaf comes out next. I'm going to go for Aurora Beam. It does over half. We get Curse damage, but then it just goes Reflect, so we can simply go for Aurora Beam and knock that Pokemon out. And that brings us to the final Zubat, where technically Aurora Beam, Psybeam, they're effectively the same power here. I'm going to go Psybeam here and just get the one-hit KO. So sure enough, Octillery completely destroys the Rival once it gets its level up moves. You don't need to add on Surf at this point. You're going to do enough damage just as it is. And now I think Psybeam is going to be enough to get us through Morty's gym, but let's get into those fights and find out. And here we actually level up and get to learn Octazooka. I'm actually going to learn this over Bubble Beam since it is kind of a signature move of this Pokemon. I'm just kind of interested to see how it actually stacks up. And effectively, we're just trading the chance to lower speed for the chance to lower accuracy of our opponents. And while accuracy strats obviously aren't great in Gen 2, it still could be a slight advantage that allows us to win a fight. And with that, we easily make it to Morty himself, so let's just see if we can manage the victory. First up, of course, he's got the Gastly. I'm just going to go Psybeam and get the easy one-hit KO. Haunter is out next. It outspeeds and hits Hypnosis, then starts going into Nightshade. Still, we wake up and knock that Pokemon out with a single Psybeam, but then we get put to sleep immediately by the Gengar. So clearly we lose the first attempt. Mintberry should help, but this one really seems to just come down to not getting bad luck with that Hypnosis, since he's more likely to miss than to hit with that move. The next attempt we get Curse instead from the Haunter, so we knock it out in a single hit. That brings us to Gengar, which misses the first Hypnosis, and we did over half with Psybeam. So now the Mintberry will heal our second Hypnosis there, and we just knock that Pokemon out. That means we've got the Haunter out last. It goes for Nightshade. We hit Psybeam and get the one-hit KO. So just like that, we managed to get through with no issues from Octillery once we have that Mintberry on. And overall, a pretty nice performance. So let's check in on our last Water-type Pokemon, Mantine, before we come back and check the channel member pick Remoraid, which is going to be running pretty similar moves to this Octillery. We'll just have to see how those Pokemon go. But Mantine has really kind of just been scraping by to this point, so I'm not sure how that Pokemon's going to do. Maybe Surf is the key for it though. And Mantine, of course, in the last section had to go Swift, Blizzard, Mudslap, and Supersonic. It was already in the OPTMs category because its other moves just simply weren't doing enough. Now, we will get Bubble Beam at level 18 and then Takedown at level 25, but I'm not sure if we get to level 25 until just at Morty with this slow level up group Pokemon. And honestly, it's hard to see what else we could do in this section than just learn Surf, which is obviously going to be better anyway. So that might be the strategy, is just to slap Surf onto this Pokemon as quick as possible. Still, I'll go for the level up moves first just to see if they are enough, but otherwise Surf might just be the solution. And here with Bubble Beam, I'm going to learn the move over Supersonic since Supersonic is just so incredibly random. Yes, it can allow us to win in some really marginal cases, but honestly, I just can't think of a different move that we would want to forget at this point. You could argue for Mudslap, I guess. Tell me if it's a mistake, but for now, this is how I'm going to progress. But of course, our 4x weakness to Electric is a kind of massive issue when we come to the Jolteon in the Kimono Girls section. So I think we're going to need to go down south to the lighthouse to have any shot of getting through that fight. Granted, I can go for Blizzard and see if that gives us some sort of advantage here, but honestly, we're either looking for insane amounts of luck with a freeze or a critical hit here, at least with Blizzard to get through from the looks of things. And we could go for Mudslap to try to get a miss, but even then, that's not going to be very consistent here. So coming back after gaining a level down at the lighthouse, let's see how we do now against this Jolteon. Here we take less than half damage from its first Thunder Shock, but then get knocked out on the next turn. So it's probably a range to survive 2 Thunder Shocks here. So the solution here, I think, is simply to give a normal berry, because if he gets a higher range that takes us below half HP. We'll heal up and then still survive another Thundershock in order to knock him out. So let's just try that. Here we don't get a good range, so the next Thundershock hits us, but we survive with 1 HP, only to miss with the Blizzard, so we're going to take another reset. Here we do heal with our berry though, giving us the chance to hit the second Blizzard. So after numerous attempts and going to the lighthouse, we finally managed to beat the last of the Kimono Girls. And with that, we can get access to HM3 for Surf. We may need the move, I'm not sure. For now, I'm going to roll with Bubble Beam and try the Rival one time, but we'll definitely go to Surf if it looks like this is inconsistent, especially because that Magnemite is going to have a 4-time super effective Thundershock yet again. Might be the only play that gets us through. First up though, we've got to take on this Houndour. I'm going to try to go Bubble Beam here, and we do half damage, so after Curse that Pokemon does go down. Magnemite's out next. I'm going to stick with the Bubble Beam and not get the 1-hit KO. It goes for Supersonic though, so since we don't hit ourselves in confusion, we knock it out on the next turn. Zubat is out next. I'm going to go for Blizzard here, but we get confused and hit ourselves, meaning we simply lose this attempt. Still, let's try this one again. And in fact, I'm going to go for Blizzard here. We're in a speed tie with that Haunter, so if we land Blizzard and get the freeze, obviously that would give us a chance to get through with no Curse. It didn't work that time, but now that I know that Magnemite's a 2-hitter, I'm going to go for the Mud Slap first. We get a Thundershock miss. Now we can Bubble Beam that Pokemon down. Out next is the Zubat. I'm going back to Blizzard and getting the 1-hit KO. That gets us to level 22 as Bayleaf comes out. I'm going to go for Blizzard and miss. It goes for Poison Powder. Now I can go Blizzard and take it down to fairly low health. We survive the Razor Leaf since we are a flying type. We only took neutral damage there, meaning one more Blizzard does end that battle. So even with a Blizzard miss, we were able to survive, partially thanks to it using Poison Powder on me, but still, that's the way the AI of the rival works. If he's not going to just knock you out, he could go Poison Powder, he could go for Reflect, and that's all we really needed to get through there. So now the question is Bubble Beam enough to get us through Morty's gym, or are we going to need to go Surf? Let's test it out and find out. So that brings us to Morty himself. We're only at level 24 right now, so we're going to learn Takedown after we level up in this fight, I believe. Not that Takedown would have any impact on this battle whatsoever, but I will use it, I think, later in the challenge. So let's just get into Morty and see if Bubble Beam does the trick. First up, we've got the Gastly. I go Bubble Beam, and that is an easy 1-hit KO. Haunter is out next. We outspeed, and this is going to be a 2-hitter with Bubble Beam. That brings us now to the Gengar. I'm going to go for the Blizzard here. He uses Shadow Ball and gets a special defense drop on me. Not sure if that's just because he knew that he would get the stat drop. That seems to be the way the AI works sometimes, where we'll use moves when it knows it will get a stat drop on you, but then we get put to sleep and Dream Eatered and lose. So let's try the Mint Berry in this one and see if that manages to get us through. So back for round 2, of course, still Bubble Beam on the first Gastly. On the Haunter, more Bubble Beam. It goes Curse, which is perfectly fine. Now we've got the Gengar. It goes Hypnosis and misses turn 1. We hit the Bubble Beam. Misses Hypnosis turn 2. Once again, we hit. Now I'm going to try Blizzard. We missed, and unfortunately, then we get knocked out. I think Blizzard would have had the range to knock that Pokemon out, so I went for it. Obviously, the reason I was trying to go Bubble Beam instead is because of the fact that Bubble Beam has 100% accuracy. Still, I think at this point, Surf will just give us a better range than Bubble Beam, and I'm not sure there's too many cases where we're as worried about the speed drop at this point. So I think Surf is just the all-around better play. So let's simply try this with Surf now and see if it makes this a better range, since Surf will be stronger than even Blizzard effectively thanks to the same type attack bonus. So here we still one-shot against the first Gastly. Surf now on the Haunter is also a 1-hit KO. Gengar is out next. It hits the first Hypnosis, but we use the Mint Berry. Surf takes it down to half health. It misses a Hypnosis and we knock it out. That gets us to level 25 to learn Takedown. I'm just going to learn this over Swift. Of course, we could replace Takedown later on with Return if we really need to. And now we'll just go for Surf on the final Haunter. It's not a 1-hitter, but it is a 2-hitter here. I'll even just use Mud Slap to finish it off. And just like that, we have defeated Morty with no issues. Surf is the solution for this Mantine. But honestly, Mantine, the same as Lantern, is one of these cases of these kind of new water types in Gen 2 suffering from being in the slow level up group. Honestly, if this Pokemon were like in the medium fast level up group and thus had a couple more levels here, I think it would have been perfectly fine getting through that section of the game, even without going Surf, because we would just be doing more damage. But given this situation where we're stuck a couple levels lower, using Surf is kind of necessary in order to make that fight reasonably consistent. But with that, we are now to another channel member, Dead Rise for No One, and his little gunfish. Dead Rise for No One has already been supporting this Pokemon for 6 months. Thank you very much for your continued support. And this Pokemon is coming in, of course, with a ton of moves. We have Octazooka, Watergun, Aurora Beam, and Lock On. And just like our evolved form, we're about to learn Psybeam and Bubble Beam in this section. Of course, we'll just skip Bubble Beam since we've already got Octazooka, and if we really need a stronger water type move, we'll go Surf. But Lock On is kind of interesting in the sense that it does allow us to guarantee that the next move will hit. That could be useful in certain situations, but honestly, I'm not sure if it's going to be useful here. And I always found Lock On to be kind of a strange move because you're basically guaranteeing that the next move will hit, but assuming that you have a move that's at least 50% accurate, you would have pretty much the same odds of just using the same move twice in a row. So the only reason why you would, I think, ever use that is if you need a guaranteed like one-hit KO with a really inaccurate move. Like, I guess it could kind of make sense if you were using something like Dynamic Punch, you could still miss some percentage of the time. But I always wondered why this Pokemon has that move specifically, since outside of Whirlpool, basically all of its moves are 90% accuracy or better. It just seems to me like that move never really has any value, but I could be wrong. But I'm just saying all this to say that there's a high likelihood that we'll actually end up forgetting that move as we move on. But now Remoraid is another one of these Pokemon that really struggles against the Jolteon. So again, I think the only strategy is to go down south to the Lighthouse and see if that enables us to now get through. And here in the Lighthouse, we do level up and learn Psybeam, which we'll learn over Water Gun since it's basically unnecessary, and we will skip Bubble Beam, though technically you could argue Bubble Beam is better for its full accuracy. I prefer to use the unique move in Octazooka, and if we have to replace with a kind of generic move, let's just go Surf. But now after going down south to gain an additional level, let's come back and see if we can actually manage to beat the Jolteon. Instead, it one-shots me with a single Thunder Shock. Believe that was a critical hit, but still, and it still looks like Octazooka is a 3-hit KO here. So honestly, we might just not be able to beat this Kimono Girl at least reliably at this point. So instead, I'm going to go and try my hand at the Rival with my current moveset. Let's just see if we can manage to get the win there. So first up, of course, we've got the Haunter. I'm just going to go for Psybeam here after it curses. We can simply knock that Pokemon out. Magnemite is out next. We'll go Octazooka. This is going to be a 2-hitter, but he misses the Supersonic, which is perfectly fine. Bayleaf is out next. We can go Aurora Beam since it's super effective. It does less than half though, and then Razor Leaf simply knocks us out. So it's pretty clear that this is not looking good, and we might be going for accuracy strats here this whole way. This time, however, we don't get cursed by the first Haunter. Instead, we just got licked. We get a nice range with the Octazooka to just one-shot there against the Magnemite. That brings us back to the Bayleaf. We get a critical hit on this Pokemon. It goes for Poison Powder, so we knocked that Pokemon out. Zubat comes out. We can go Aurora Beam. We don't get the one-hitter. It confuses us, but then we just use Psybeam to finish it off. So we actually do manage to beat the Rival, but that felt insanely lucky. Like, how? How did we get that level of luck? But hey, Dead Rise for No One, channel member, I will keep it. Let's just move on, especially because we got it within a couple attempts. But now I'm going to move on to try to fight that last Kimono Girl. Let's see if we can manage to beat her, or are we going to have to go into Morty's gym first? So back here, Octazooka is our strongest move. We're still taking over half damage from the Thunder Shock though, and we just get destroyed. So yeah, that fight is still not happening. So instead, I'll make my way into the gym where we can just use Psybeam, I think, to get through all the randos. Let's see how this goes. And sure enough, getting through all the random trainers was no issue. I'm going to give the Mint Berry and then try my hand at Morty. So Morty attempt number 1, we go Psybeam on the Gastly and get the one-hit KO. Haunter's out next. Psybeam does not get the one-hitter, so we get cursed right there. Still, we move on to the Gengar at level 26. It misses the first Hypnosis. Psybeam appears to be a 3-hit KO, but we did confuse the Gengar. It hits itself in confusion, allowing us to knock it out on the next turn. Now we go Psybeam on the final Haunter. We get a critical hit one-shot, and just like that, our little gunfish has managed to get through Morty. So now the question is, can we beat that last Kimono Girl? We need to beat her in order to get access to Surf, and technically we cannot progress in the game without the Surf TM. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to give a berry here so that if we take slightly more than half damage, we can heal up in the middle of this fight. Maybe that gives us the range, but we're still going to possibly be going for a critical hit here. Let's just see. So now against this Jolteon, we're actually faster. I hit Psybeam there. I meant to use Octazooka. I just misclicked, and so we lose this attempt after getting paralyzed. Let's try this again with Octazooka instead. We do over half and we survive. So now we are finally able to defeat that Kimono Girl, get to level 27. We can grab the Surf HM and move on in the game. So Dead Rise for No One, thank you so much for your continued support of the channel. I really appreciate you. And that was kind of an interesting Pokemon, to be perfectly honest. Lots of overpowered moves, but still, it looked like we got just insane luck on that Rival 3 fight. And you have to take all the battles in order to beat that Kimono Girl. Oh my goodness. Still, we have gotten through, so we can check on our progress so far. So with that, we are now up to 71 Pokemon legitimately getting through this section of the game. Of course, Octillery and Mantine were using OPTMs from the previous section, which is why they remain in that section. And so far in this episode, channel members are doing just fine. So hopefully we can keep them going. But with that being done, we now have a lot of random types to deal with. Let's get our Muck out of the way, and then we can check in on our ghosts with Haunter and Gengar and the member pick Gastly that is running Psywave. And Muck comes in with a pretty underwhelming moveset currently of Pound, Poison Gas, Harden, and Mud Slap. We still can get the elemental punches if we should need them in this section, but that's really all we've got if we struggle. We will also learn Minimize at level 23, which could help us out a little bit, but honestly, the main issue here is that we don't have anything great for the ghost types that are going to use Curse on us, so we're kind of hoping that our high attack stat together with Mud Slap will be enough. Now, the advantage we have, of course, is that we're incredibly bulky, so we did even survive there against the Espeon when we were taking on the Kimono Girls. So it could be possible that with reasonably high HP, we find a way through. Still, we're just gonna have to see if this moveset can actually work out or if we're gonna run into trouble here. I'm not super confident, but we won't know if we can beat the rival until we try, so let's get into this and find out. Of course, he leads off with the Haunter that is faster than us, so I'm going to go for Mud Slap here after he goes Curse. It's going to take 2 Mud Slaps to knock this Pokemon out. After that, he sends out the Magnemite. Fortunately, Mud Slap is 4 times super effective, but it's still going to take 2 hits to knock this Pokemon out, and he confuses us, which basically means we're losing this first attempt. The Zubat, yet again, we don't have anything super strong here, so we would simply go down. This makes me think that an Elemental Punch might be the way to go. So here, I'm going to replace Poison Gas and Pound with Thunder Punch and Fire Punch. Fire Punch, of course, gives us a super effective move against the Magnemite, and Thunder Punch, I believe we're up against the Croconaw team here, will guarantee that we have super effective moves against the last 2 Pokemon on the Rivals team, and who knows, maybe that proves to be enough to get through. Our special attack isn't great, but if they're super effective moves, it might just be enough. So first things first, here against the Haunter, I'm going to go for Fire Punch and just see how much damage it does. Of course, it does less than the Mud Slap, because of the fact that we have a lower special stat. Still, we do take that Pokemon down. Out next is the Magnemite. It goes for Sonic Boom, and we simply lose that attempt. So let's try this all again. Let's go for Mud Slap, this time on the Haunter. So we're still going to take 2 hits to knock this one out. It goes for the Spite on us, but that's perfectly fine. Now let's go Fire Punch on Magnemite, and we do get a 1-hit KO. Zubat will go Thunder Punch and not quite get the 1-hitter. It's going to be a 2-hitter to get through that Pokemon. Croconaws out last. We go Thunder Punch. We do slightly less than half. It goes Bite, and it survives with 1 HP on our second Thunder Punch. So this was pretty darn close, but it makes me think that the simple solution is just to go to the Lighthouse, and we should get the ranges there. And now here with the level up, we can learn the move Minimize, and I'm going to go ahead and learn this move over Harden. Number 1, because we can relearn Harden later at level 33, but number 2, because it's possible that there are some fights that we could win by having more evasion. And because Minimize allows you to set it up on yourself, you're not relying on accuracy drops on the opponent, it can actually turn out to be a really good strategy in some situation. So I'm simply going to replace that move and let's move on. And now with a couple additional levels under our belt, let's make our way back to the rival, where I think we can now take him down. Let's see if it actually works out. So first things first, we're going to stick with the Mud Slap here on the Haunter. It's still going to be a 2-hitter to knock this Pokemon out after Curse. Out next is the Magnemite. We're going to go Fire Punch and get the 1-hit KO. Very nice. Zubat, let's go Thunder Punch. And we still do not quite get the 1-hitter here. It's a 2-hitter. But now let's see the range on Croconaw. We do over half now with Thunder Punch and Paralyze it. It goes for Leer, and that allows us to win on this attempt. So it's not really pretty with our Muck, but we are able to get through the rival fight. Now we have to see if we can find a way through Morty though. And we really wish that we could use some sort of physical move here, but the only physical move that we have that can hit ghosts is that Mud Slap. So honestly, in a full game challenge, you might want this Pokemon to have something like Hidden Power Ghost or Hidden Power Ground or something like that in order to be able to effectively get through these opponents. Hidden Power Ghost would make the most sense because it's also super effective against Psychic types, one of your primary weaknesses, but otherwise we're just stuck using this incredibly weak move to try to get through, and we're just hoping that our high attack stat is enough. And after a bit of testing there, I can say for sure that the moves Fire Punch and Thunder Punch are not doing as much damage as Mud Slap here against these opponents. So we want to use Mud Slap as much as possible. I popped out to heal just to get my PP back, and I also think we need a Mint Berry here. Still, this could be incredibly close, so let's get into the Morty fight and see if this is possible. So first up against the Gastly, we go Mud Slap. It's going to be a 2-hit KO on this Pokemon. It goes Lick though, so we get through just fine. Next is Haunter. It goes for Nightshade. I go for Mud Slap. I got a critical hit, but it's still a 2-hitter, and then it misses a Hypnosis. That's perfectly fine. Gengar misses the first Hypnosis. This looks to be a 4-hit KO with Mud Slap, but as long as he's just going for Hypnosis and getting his accuracy lowered, we get through with no damage taken from that Pokemon. That brings us to the final Haunter. It goes Nightshade. We go for the Mud Slap. Now Mimic. Now we Mud Slap it, and finally a Fire Punch should end this one. Just like that, we do in fact manage to get through with Muck. It's not pretty, but it is possible. Now, with that being said, I think that this Pokemon really needs to take on Chuck early in the next section, because while it's a little bit random, if we can get access to Sludge Bomb, of course, in the next section, but also Dynamic Punch, that could be our best shot of getting through the next several gyms. Because while Steelix, yes, has really high defense, we have really high attack, so maybe a Dynamic Punch would be enough to get a decent range on the Steelix. Maybe even a 1-hit KO range with a crit or something like that. And honestly, I think that's the kind of situation we're going to be looking for if we want to get this Pokemon to progress in the next section. Still, Muck is in the running. Now let's check in on our Ghost Poison types with our Gengar, Haunter, and channel member pick Gastly. But now I got all the way to the end of this episode and finished recording, or so I thought, and realized that I had forgotten to do Sable Mike's Weezy. It's time to see if this Weezing with Psybeam can manage to beat Morty. Now, the fact that we have Psybeam and Rollout on our moveset makes me feel pretty good about this section overall. I think the Mint Berry is going to be all that it takes to get through, but we'll just have to see. We're obviously not super fast, so we are going to probably have to go Quick Claw on rival number 3 if I have to guess. And here we even get to learn Sludge via level up. I'm going to learn it over Smog since Smog is kind of a trash move, and Sludge will give us effectively our second strongest same type attack in this entire run. And so while Espeon does a lot of damage, Sludge is going to be a 2-hit KO on this Pokemon, allowing us to get the victory against the last Kimono Girl, and we're ready to move on to the rival. Now, we don't have terrible special here, but I don't expect that Psybeam is going to one-shot against the Haunter. That's just at least my prediction, given the fact that it's not a same type move, and Haunter at least has reasonable special defense. Still, I'm going to give the Quick Claw and just test this out a few times and see if we can manage to get the one-hitter on that Haunter first, because if we can, then I think we've got a smooth battle. Otherwise, we might have to just try to set up the rollout strat. And sure enough, when we just use Psybeam after the Quick Claw, we do not get a one-hit KO. So sure, he could go Lick and then we could get another Psybeam, but that's fairly unlikely to happen that we get through without any curse on. Still, we can see how we do against the rest of the team. Obviously, we don't have anything good here against the Magnemite with our moveset. I can go for Psybeam, but this looks like it's going to be a 4-hit KO on this Pokemon. We'd probably be better off just with Rollout slowly building up here. So let's come back again and try instead with the Rollout strat and see if that manages to get us through. Here it does take 2 Rollouts after Curse to knock out the first Haunter. Magnemite comes out and is going to be another 2-hitter as we take a Sonic Boom. Now against the Zubat, of course, Rollout will simply get the 1-hit KO, but then Rollout is finished when we get to the Croconaw. Let's see what Sludge does. It does not quite do half, so that makes me think going down to the Lighthouse is the play at this point. It would certainly make a massive difference if we had Defense Curl with Rollout. Then I think we would just be able to sweep the entire team, but here without that setup, I just don't see a way that we get that one to go without some sort of critical hit. And currently, there aren't any other TMs that we can learn that don't put us in that OP TMs category. Of course, Thunder would theoretically help a lot against that Croconaw in that situation, but I think the better play is just to get the levels for now and see if we can manage to get a better range with the damage rounding threshold at level 23. So back to the rival at level 23 after gaining 2 levels against the required trainers in the Lighthouse. We're ready to try this again and see if we just get a better range. Now, I still don't expect Psybeam to one-shot here, so I'm going to stick with the Rollout strat. We get the Quick Claw turn 1 in order to use Rollout first, but then we get paralyzed, which is kind of terrible. Magnemite comes out and goes Sonic Boom, and it's still going to be a 2-hitter on this Pokemon. We're fully paralyzed, so we're pretty clearly losing this attempt. Still, let's just see if we can get slightly better luck here. We get Lick turn 1 and turn 2 from this Haunter, but then it goes Curse. I think we just have to reset. This time, we seem to be getting better luck on the Magnemite, knocking it out in 2 hits. Out comes the Zubat. We missed the Rollout here though, meaning that we're gonna have to knock it out with a Psybeam, and with so little health, I don't think we have any shot of getting through the Croconaw here. We simply go down. Now, I do think that if we just get 1 critical hit with Rollout on the Magnemite, we could just simply win this fight by virtue of being able to just one-shot everything after the Haunter, and that could be the way that we actually get through here. This time we do at least get to Croconaw still on green health. We can go for Sludge. Again, it still does slightly less than half, so we would need a critical hit here in order to win. So we can either critical hit with Rollout on the Magnemite, and I think that will get the win, or if we get through without any misses from Rollout, we can get a critical hit on the Croconaw in order to win. So 2 ways to potentially win, just not super consistent. This time we managed to get through the Haunter without a curse, however, because I actually went Psybeam and confused it, and then managed to knock it out the next turn. So here without Curse on, we're going to set up Rollout against the Magnemite, but we simply could not survive after we hit ourselves in confusion. But that does make me a little bit interested to see what happens if we just knock out the Haunter with Psybeam and then try to set up Rollout on that Magnemite. And if that's our strategy, we don't necessarily need a Quick Claw. Anyway, we might be better off with a Bitter Berry in order to avoid the confusion in this one. This time we get a Lick followed by a critical hit Psybeam, allowing us to simply knock out the Haunter. So again, we're to the Magnemite with no Curse on. Here it hits the Supersonic, but we of course snap out of it with the help of the Bitter Berry. That brings out Zubat. We hit it with Rollout and get the one-hit KO, but because we set up on the Magnemite, we still had Rollout on Croconaw and get the one-hitter there. So that seems to be the actual strategy with this Pokemon. Don't even worry about Quick Claw or trying to set up Rollout on the Haunter, but rather put on the Bitter Berry. Just knock out Haunter as quick as you can. You're either going to get it with Psybeam after it goes for Curse, or you can get that situation where it uses something else and get a crit. It's pretty lucky. But even still, assuming that you don't get hit by a bunch of Sonic Booms there by that Magnemite, you then can technically win. As long as you manage to get 3 hits from Rollout on Magnemite, you're actually good to go for the last 2 Pokemon. And with that, we can simply get into the gym where we've got Psybeam. I think the randos are going to be just fine. Let's make our way to Morty. And here at level 25, we could learn Smokescreen. I'm going to skip this move because we know accuracy strats aren't that good in Gen 2. It could, of course, be a mistake, but I'm going to try to get through without that move. Honestly, I think Jasmine might be the situation where I would really want to spam Smokescreen, but I just can't see us getting through with that strategy. By that point, I think we'd rather just go Fire Blast if we get that desperate. Anyway, we have made it to Morty with Sable Mike's Wheezy, so let's just see how this Pokemon does. Psybeam, of course, but we've also got Rollout. Rollout might be the strategy. I'm going to give the Mint Berry as we come into this one because I think that's the primary way we're going to get through. Let's hope for some Hypnosis misses and see if we get the easy victory. So first up against the Gastly, I'm actually going to set up Rollout here. It's going to be a 2-hitter on this Pokemon, but we knock it out. Very nice. Haunter comes out and gets 1 shot. Now we're, of course, slower than this Gengar, but it misses the Hypnosis. We hit the Rollout, getting the 1-hitter there, and we get the last Rollout to knock out the final Haunter. So we get through on the first attempt, no difficulty whatsoever. Doesn't matter that we're a poison type. Rollout is just far too powerful. So once again, Sable Mike, thank you so much for your support, and sorry that I forgot at the moment. I don't know, I might edit this in after Muck just because that's where I intended to have this Pokemon, but we'll just see. Either way, it will be in the final video. So just want to say I appreciate you for all your support, and thanks to all the other channel members for supporting the channel. We're up to 30 channel members. 28 have made selections. If you haven't made a selection yet and you're a channel member, make sure you get it to me as soon as possible. So Gengar, of course, is coming in with the trolliest moveset ever: Curse, Nightmare, Hypnosis, and Spite. And this might just be the most ridiculous strategy that we're using in this entire challenge. We should be faster than basically everything here, so it should just be a matter of whether or not we can get opponents to sleep and then use Nightmare and Curse in order to get through the major fights. With that being said, we might want to end up using some actual damage dealing moves at some point, but for now I'm going to come into the Kimono Girls and just try to use this strategy. Now the thing about our strategy here is that it really doesn't depend on our level as long as we outspeed our opponents. That's all that actually matters, and then we're just hoping that they stay asleep for enough turns so that Nightmare can do its thing, and we just have to be selective about which Pokemon we want to use Curse against. In theory, if we're always landing Hypnosis, there are a lot of spots where if we level up in the fight, for example, we can actually use Curse twice in the same battle, just because we'll have a little bit of extra HP. So that's also a consideration in some of these fights. Anyway, I'm going to come straight to the Rival 3 and see if I can manage the win with this. It's going to be pretty random, I think, but let's try it. So first up, if he uses Curse on us, we already know that it's game over because our whole strategy requires lots of turns. But we outspeed here, so as long as our Hypnosis hits, we should have a chance against the Haunter. Now, once we get the Hypnosis here, I'm going to go Curse Curse and then Nightmare on the Haunter, I think this is the Pokemon that I want to take down quickly. And as long as it stays asleep for 3 turns, I will win against that Pokemon. Now against the Zubat, I'm going to go Hypnosis here and then just go to Nightmare and then start just spamming Spite in order to reduce its PP and Bite. When it wakes up, of course, we have to Nightmare this Pokemon again. We're hoping for a nice long sleep for this Pokemon. We do manage to get through. Croconaws out next. We land Hypnosis and Nightmare. And now, yet again, we're just hoping for this to be a very long sleep. It's going to take 5 turns to knock this Pokemon out. Unfortunately, he just doesn't stay asleep long enough. Now, with that being said, if we just have a damage-dealing move here, we should basically be good. So I'm going to replace Spite with Thunder Punch. It's going to be super effective against both the Zubat and against the Croconaw and be neutrally effective against the Haunter. So then in theory, we can go for our Curse plus Nightmare on the Magnemite, and that might just work out. So let's get into this and try it out. So in this case, I will still Nightmare on the Haunter in order to just reduce its HP and then use Thunder Punch. So as long as it stays asleep and gets 2 Nightmares after that, it will go down. Zubat's out next. I'll just go for Thunder Punch and get the 1-hitter. Croconaw comes out. I'm going to still try to put this Pokemon to sleep, and now I can go for my Thunder Punch to just 2-shot that Pokemon. So even if I hadn't gotten it to sleep, if I just Thunder Punched twice, it would have gone down. Now we've made it to the final Magnemite. It confuses me and I miss my Hypnosis, but then I finally do hit. So now let's go for Nightmare, and we know that Thunder Punch isn't going to do that much here, but still it does better than I thought, and Nightmare takes it down. So it's really just a matter of having a damage dealing move there. Obviously Spite is the move that can go, and just like that, we are able to progress in this challenge. And here, while we don't expect Thunder Punch to one-shot most of Morty's Pokemon, we still should do enough damage that if we have the Hypnosis plus Nightmare setup, it shouldn't really be that hard to get through this team. Still, we have to see how he's going to react to us. Is he going to go Shadow Ball with the Gengar? I honestly don't know. Let's get into it and find out. So first off, on the Gastly, I think I can just go Thunder Punch and get the 1-hit KO. Sure enough, I do. Now on the Haunter, I want to go Hypnosis. We miss Hypnosis. He hits Hypnosis. And now he's going for Mimic against us, but he finally curses, and that's what we didn't want to see. We're just going to have to reset on this one, I think, when he goes Curse, because even after we land the Hypnosis, he's simply going to knock us out. Still, this just comes down to Hypnosis luck, and I think we can get it eventually. If he does use Curse while we're awake, we can, of course, just one-shot from there with Thunder Punch. Let's see the range of Thunder Punch on his Gengar. It does slightly less than half, but he misses his Hypnosis, and we paralyze him, so we are able to knock that out in 3 hits. Now we've made it to the final Haunter. I'm going to Hypnosis this Pokemon just because I don't want him to be able to use Nightshade on me. We did almost a 1-hit KO there. He had 3 HP remaining, but with 3 HP remaining ourselves, we do knock him out. So just a couple attempts there on Morty to get through. Really not an issue. Now we've got Shadow Ball, technically our strongest same type move with this Pokemon. And the rest of this run, I think, just comes down to always knowing which elemental punch to have on in our final move slot, and then it's just about Hypnosis luck in order to get through most fights. I think we might run into a wall when we get to the Elite Four, though. We're really gonna have to see, but for now, hey, Gengar, he is moving on. Let's move down now to Haunter. And now our Haunter is coming in with Curse, Lick, Nightmare, and Hypnosis, and this could be kind of interesting since Lick can, of course, affect our opponents here. It's a very weak move, but a same type move, and it's super effective against ghost types. So as long as we're faster, Lick might be the strategy. And because of our badge boost and special and max DVs, we are guaranteed to be faster than the rival's first Haunter. And after beating the Kimono Girls, sure, we took a couple resets there, but really it's just due to Hypnosis luck. We can now make our way into the Burned Tower and try our hand at Rival 3, where yet again, I think this just comes down to Hypnosis luck, especially on the first Haunter. So first up, we're going to go for Hypnosis. Assuming it lands, we will then Lick the Haunter. It's going to be a 3-hit KO on this Pokemon from the looks of things. We just want to keep him asleep as long as possible. Zubat is out next. We go Hypnosis, and now we're going to go Nightmare on this Pokemon, and now go into our Licks just to help the Nightmare take him down a little bit quicker. We get through with no damage there going to the Croconaw. It goes Leer turn 1 after I miss Hypnosis, but now I can put it to sleep, Nightmare, Nightmare, and more lick action here just to guarantee that we take it down a little bit faster. And we take that Pokemon down again with no damage. We get to level 25 as the Magnemite comes out. It hits Supersonic after we missed the first Hypnosis. We missed the second Hypnosis and get paralyzed. And finally, we hit the third Hypnosis. We're going to go Nightmare here. And this is the Pokemon I'm going to also curse against because Lick isn't going to do that much. But unfortunately, he wakes up and knocks us out. So really, we just need to get better luck on that last Magnemite and we should have the win. For some reason, this time he inexplicably withdrew Haunter and sent out Magnemite. So we've simply Nightmared this Pokemon and we're just trying to take it down. We do knock it out. In fact, he sends out Zubat next. We can put this Pokemon to sleep and go Nightmare. And now again, we're just going to start licking this Pokemon down. We get through that Pokemon with no damage. Croconaw comes out. We go Hypnosis, Nightmare, and here is where I'm going to go Curse as well, just to deal as much damage as possible. We'll lick this turn as he wakes up, but he simply goes down after that. We've got the Haunter. We miss our Hypnosis and he licks to knock us out. So yet again, we just needed to land one more Hypnosis. The next attempt, we do get back to that Magnemite on full health after knocking out everything else. He misses his Supersonic this time. Now we can go Nightmare and we can go Curse on this Pokemon just to increase the damage that is done. It wakes up and misses Supersonic. We miss Hypnosis though, and we really just needed one more turn there and we would have won. We just needed to land one of those two Hypnosises. So at this point, I'm just thinking that maybe it's better to go to the lighthouse and gain a level or two just to have a slightly better range there, because we keep getting so close, and there are some of those where maybe an extra level and a little extra HP would mean that we didn't get KO'd by the last move that the opponent used, giving us another chance to get the damage on them, or it could mean that our lick does just a little bit more to our opponent, also allowing us to knock them out that way. Now, of course, the big difference here between Haunter and Gengar is that we do not get access to the elemental punches, so we don't have that as an option, despite the fact that our Pokemon does in fact have hands. So we pretty much have to get through with this moveset, or we have to use something that falls into that OPTMs category. So now at level 25, let's just see if we can get a slightly better range, since we are using Lick to help whittle down these opponents. Otherwise, we'll have to consider adding on a TM that technically classifies as overpowered, basically Thunder, Hidden Power, Dark, or Return. So first up, let's try to put this Haunter to sleep, of course. Let's just start licking it now. It's still a 3-hit KO, though it's closer to being a 2-hitter. We do manage to knock that Pokemon out. Zubat's out next. We land the Hypnosis. We get the Nightmare, and now we'll go back into Lick. One Lick and Nightmare had it down to basically half health. Problem is it landed Confuse Ray on us, and we're confused and not able to hit our Hypnosis. We do finally get it back to sleep, and I can just lick it down from there. Croconaw comes out. We miss Hypnosis and we lose. Still, I think this one is possible, but let's try it a little bit more. Next attempt, we are back to Zubat, though we are confused. It is asleep and taking damage from Nightmare. We simply hit ourselves in confusion a bunch of times. We finally snap out at about half health remaining and are able to knock that Pokemon out, but then Croconaw is just landing all the bites and we can't land Hypnosis. This time we get to the Croconaw on full health, put it to sleep, Nightmare it, and now I'm going to start licking again. Lick doesn't do great damage here, but it is helping reduce the number of turns we have to keep it asleep. We do knock it out, getting to the Magnemite on full health. Now we just need to land Hypnosis. We both trade misses turn 1, but now turn 2 we get it to sleep. I'm going to also curse this Pokemon at this point, and now we can just start licking as well, and this time it will finally go down. Now, I reset a bunch of times there just because of the fact that that's the only strategy that we really have available without going for OPTMs. But honestly, if you have Hidden Power Dark or Hidden Power Ghost, those are obviously going to be your best plays here. It's just kind of shocking how much more limited the moveset of Haunter is compared to Gengar, especially because it has hands. Like we just had in the last episode, people commenting that they thought I was lying that Wooper could learn Ice Punch because it doesn't have hands. And yet here we have a Pokemon with hands whose evolved Pokemon does learn elemental punches, but it doesn't for some reason. Just Pokemon logic is perfect, clearly. Still, getting into the gym, we can actually just spam Lick here on things like Gastly and get through without any issues. And if they decide to curse against us, they're just going to knock themselves out. so all of these randos are really not a problem. So with that, it's just time to make our way to Morty himself. So here against Morty, I'm going to give a Mint Berry and just see if I can manage to win. Obviously, we're faster than everything here thanks to Max DVs and the badge boost in speed from Whitney, but I think everything is going to be a 2-hit KO. Now, he curses on the first Gastly, so I'm just going to lick him down from there. Here against the Houndour, I think it's going to go for Hypnosis, so I'm just hoping that it won't be able to do anything. It's fully paralyzed. That's perfectly fine too. Now on the Gengar, I'm just going to lick and paralyze this Pokemon. It goes Shadow Ball though and knocks me out. So clearly we need to be able to put this Pokemon to sleep, and we're going to have to get there with no curse if we're really going to do that. So basically, I'm going to try to get Hypnosis on the first Pokemon and then just lick twice to knock it out. There's no point setting up Nightmare there, I don't think. Haunter, we're also going to put to sleep. Here I will set up Nightmare and now go for the lick to hopefully take it out in the next couple turns. There we go, we get it down. Gengar is out next. We have to sleep this Pokemon. We do. This is where I'm actually going to curse, because even though he will use Shadow Ball against me, I just want to take this Pokemon down as quick as possible with Nightmare Curse. We get it down with no additional damage taken. That brings us to the final Haunter that knows Spite, Mean Look, Mimic, and Nightshade. We would survive 2 Nightshades here, so I'm just going to lick, paralyze it. It's fully paralyzed, and we knock it out the next turn. So just like that, Haunter gets through. Morty was actually fairly straightforward and easy, whereas the Rival was really, really tough with this Pokemon. And I think the success of this Pokemon at this point is all going to ride on how many Pokemon our opponent has. If they have just a couple of Pokemon like Chuck, we're probably fine, because it's not that luck-based to land 2 Hypnosises and then just whittle their Pokemon down. But when we get later and later into this run, as opponents have 4, 5, 6 Pokemon, being able to land Hypnosis on all of those Pokemon becomes insanely difficult to do. And that could mean that this Pokemon eventually struggles to get through the game. If we can get the Dream Eater though, we actually get another advantage of being able to heal in battle from that move. And that could actually make a massive difference, because then we can actually miss some Hypnosises because we're healing up as we go, and that could be the difference in this run. But for now, we are moving on. Let's move finally to our channel member pick, Gastly, with Psywave, and see if that Pokemon can continue to progress. And that brings us to channel member TheProgramedKnight, who's running his Gastwave. Of course, we actually got rid of Psywave as soon as we could. We're running Curse, Nightmare, Hypnosis, and Nightshade. I'm very interested to see if Nightshade affects things here. Since we're a weaker Pokemon, in theory, dealing fixed damage based on our level should be stronger, especially in some of these tough situations. But of course, Nightshade can't be used against normal types. That shouldn't make a big impact here, but it could impact future sections of the run. And similar to Haunter, we just don't really have much of a moveset to learn outside of these moves, unless we're going to go to OPTMs, but let's just see if this can work or not. And with the Kimono Girls not really being that big of a challenge, we can move on to rival number 3. I'm coming in here because we're already faster than the Haunter, and honestly, with Nightshade, we're guaranteed to do 24 damage to any opponent that we hit with that move. So in theory, we're going to get better ranges than what we were getting with Lick previously with the Haunter, and that should, at least in theory, make this a little bit easier. So first up, we're going to go Hypnosis on the Haunter. If we miss the Hypnosis on the Haunter, we simply reset every time. But once we do get it, I am going to still Nightmare this Pokemon and then go for Nightshade on top of that, and there it will take 2 turns after that to knock him out. Zubat comes out next. I'm still going to go Hypnosis here and then go Curse and Nightshade. This would be a 3-hit KO with just Nightshade, but after Nightmare, we're going to take it out in 2 turns after that. Next is Croconaw. It goes for Bite and does massive damage with a critical hit, and we miss 2 Hypnosises in a row, so we simply lose. A couple attempts later, we're back to Croconaw, and this time we do get it to sleep. I'm going to Nightmare, and I'm going to go Curse on this Pokemon, just trying to knock it out as quickly as possible. And after that, we can simply Nightshade to knock it out. We get to level 25 as Magnemite comes out. I'm still going to go for Sleep here because I don't want to get confused. Of course, I missed 2 Hypnosises in a row, and then it lands the Supersonic and then 2 Thunder Shocks. We just couldn't land a single Hypnosis on this Pokemon. That being said, it would be a 2-hit KO, so I probably should have just gone for Nightshade there. It would have been a perfectly fine spot to get the win. A few attempts later, we're back to the Magnemite on low health, and the question is just, does it knock us out on 16 HP with a Thunder Shock? If the answer is no, then clearly 2 Nightshades is the solution. I'm just going to go for it. It misses the Supersonic, and that gives me the win. No need to put that final Pokemon to sleep. I was just kind of getting overly obsessed with Hypnosis there. Clearly, I've been hypnotized from staring at this screen for so long. But yeah, basically, Nightshade does the job there. Now, the issue that we have is that Nightshade can never one-hit KO an opponent because we're not at a high enough level to do that. So everything is going to be at least a 2 or 3 hit KO here in the gym. Whereas with the Haunter, we were actually one-shotting this first trainer's Gastlys and had the range to 2-shot everything else. So yeah, this could actually turn out to be harder to get through these Pokemon in this section. With that being said, it's really just that first trainer that's super hard because he has so many Gastlys. I think after that, we can pretty much just go Nightshade and make our way through, but it does depend a little bit on our opponent's move choice. Still, we are able to make it through all these fights without too much difficulty, so we just have to be able to get through Morty now. I think the Mint Berry is required here, and we're going to be hoping that our Hypnosises do actually hit, and that I can actually route through this gym. Oh my gosh. So Program Knight, you are here for some serious action. Let's see if you can get the job done after I get this Mint Berry. So Morty attempt number 1, we're going to have to put this first Gastly to sleep. We do. Now I'm just going to Nightshade because this is an easy 2-hit KO. There's no point using Nightmare there. The Haunter comes out. We are faster than this Pokemon thanks to our max DVs. And this one is also a 2-hitter. So again, no point to use Nightmare or Curse when we're just going to 2-shot after that. Gengar comes out, and this Pokemon is going to be a 3-hitter, but I'm going to put it to sleep. I am going to Nightmare this one. He wakes up in Shadow Balls and just knocks me out from full health. So we clearly need sleep on this Pokemon if we're going to have a chance here. Now, even with Curse on coming into the Gengar, I think it's fine as long as we get it to sleep. And now Nightshade is going to be a 3-hitter on this Pokemon. And of course, anytime it wakes up, we simply lose. So this time we do get Gengar to sleep again. It stays asleep this time, so we do knock it out. We get to the final Haunter on full health. We could learn Confuse Ray here, but I'm not going to. I don't think it's worth it. I think we can just get better damaging moves later in the run. And now this final Haunter has just too much HP for us to 2-shot with Nightshade, but because we're faster, it's not going to be able to knock us out with Nightshade, I don't believe. So I'm just going all in on it. Nightshade, he Nightshades back, we Nightshade, he's all the way down to 1 HP, and we simply knock him out the next turn. Nothing that he could do. So Gastwave from the Programmed Knight does manage to get through. Is it pretty? No, but it's not really any worse than what we were just dealing with the Haunter. It's just a different kind of setup or range. The Haunter was better in the gym because of the fact that it was doing damage based on its attack stat, whereas we did better with this Gastwave against the rival because we were doing damage based on our level. Still, which is better going forward? I would argue that this strategy is probably going to do better against Jasmine in the next section in particular, and Haunter's very likely going to end up going for the Shadow Ball in order to deal more damage as it progresses. But with all of those Pokemon done, we're now up to 74 Pokemon in the pass column, no new Pokemon in the fail column so far, and it's time to move on to our Psychic types. We have our Hypno and our Exeggutor, and I think they both have the tools to get through this, but let's find out. Hypno, of course, is coming in now with Confusion, Hypnosis, Disable, and Pound. It also learns a ton of TMs. It can get Headbutt, it can get Elemental Punches. So even without going OP TMs, I think this Pokemon's going to get through just fine, but let's test this out. Now, Hypno, of course, makes very short work of the Kimono Girls between Hypnosis, Confusion, and Pound. And now we're ready to go into the Rival 3 fight, where we should have a super effective move against that first Haunter. We are slower, so I think this is a Quick Claw spot to try to outspeed that first Pokemon. And the real question is just, will Stab Confusion one-shot against the Haunter, or is it a 2-hit KO? Do we need to be faster and get the sleep? If this doesn't work out, we can go down to the Lighthouse and gain a couple levels to hopefully outspeed that way. but I'm going to test this just a couple times. Here we do in fact outspeed it just on the first attempt, and we can see that Confusion is not a one-hit KO, it's a two-hitter. That means that of course we're going to be stuck with Curse, even if we outspeed, unless we also get a critical hit, which I've already said Quick Claw plus crit is too much luck for my definition. But after that, we were able to 4-shot the Magnemite, we one-shot against that Zubat, and now against the Bayleaf, this is also looking like a 5-hit KO at our current level, and Curse simply takes us down on the next turn. So I'm going to make my way down to that lighthouse to hopefully get a better range and be a little bit faster. I think with 2 levels, we will be faster than the Haunter, and then in that case, we might just be able to put it to sleep, avoid the Curse, and get through just fine. And sure enough, after defeating the trainers in the lighthouse, we are able to get to level 23 and have 50 speed. That is 2 points in speed faster than the Haunter. It's all thanks to the badge boost in speed and the max DVs at this point, but it does mean that we should get a better chance to get through this fight by simply putting that first Pokemon to sleep. It also means the Quick Claw is no longer necessary here. So instead, I'm going to put on the Goldberry. That should hopefully make this fight a little more consistent. So let's try it. Now I think we just reset any time that we missed the Hypnosis turn 1, but we hit it here, so we can simply go Confusion and knock out the Haunter on the next turn. The Magnemite comes out next. I'm just going to use Hypnosis and go into my Confusion yet again. When it wakes up, I think we have to try to put it back to sleep. We do manage to get it to sleep, but after we got confused by Supersonic, and it immediately wakes up. Still, it's back to sleep again, and we hit ourselves in Confusion, but that cues the heal from the Goldberry, and now we're going to knock out this Magnemite. That brings us to the Zubat, which we can just go Confusion in one shot, and the Bayleaf, where I'm still going to go for Hypnosis here, and now just start going for Confusion, and it's going to be a 4-hit KO from the looks of things, but we do manage to take him down on that first attempt after coming back from the lighthouse. So it's not perfectly consistent by any means, but it is certainly a winnable fight with a Hypno, but those max DVs are putting in a lot of work here, especially that DV in speed. And it's worth noting that in this episode, it seems like we've got a lot of spots where we're just barely getting a range on an opponent, or we're barely not getting a range on an opponent. And it's important to remember that max DVs are not just affecting our speed, but also our attack, our HP, our defense, our special attack, our special defense. And the odds of getting max DVs on a Pokemon are 1 in 65,536. So I did a little bit of math on this way back in the day because I wanted to decide whether I should do max DVs or 0 DVs in my runs and what kind of logic I could use there. My logic for not using max DVs in my normal full game solo runs is that the time that it would take for you to reset for max DVs, like if we just assumed it took 5 seconds to reset for DVs, check your DVs with something like Gamehook and just reset every time you didn't have max DVs, assuming you're not doing some sort of RNG manipulation or Game Shark or something that honestly could be considered cheating, the odds of getting max DVs are so incredibly low that at 5 seconds per reset, on average, it would take you 96 hours to get max DVs on a Pokemon. That's how ridiculous it is trying to get these Pokemon with these perfect DVs. And we're finding a lot of cases where the DVs really do matter. So I think it's just something that's worthwhile to note, that the reason I sit here and harp on the fact that this is with max DVs is the fact that you would not expect to get these same results most of the time. In fact, the overwhelming majority of the time. In fact, most of you who have played the Pokemon games, but not played them as religiously as I have probably only ever had maybe 1 or 2 Pokemon that were actually max DVs Pokemon, and the rest were probably significantly weaker on average. Anyway, our perfect Hypno has made it here to Morty, and with Stab Confusion, I think we've got a good chance to get through, so let's get into this and find out. Now, first things first, we are faster than this Gastly. I'm just going to go Confusion and get the easy one-hit KO. The first Haunter comes out, and we're faster than this Pokemon as well, and here Confusion is a one-hitter. Gengar comes out next. I'm going to go for Hypnosis here. I did not put on the Mint Berry, but we get it to sleep, and it's going to be a 2-hit hitter with confusion, so that's perfectly fine. The final Haunter really can't do anything other than Nightshade, so we'll just go for the confusion. It's a 2-hit KO to take that Pokemon down, and we easily beat Morty on the first attempt. So our Hypno kind of struggled a little bit against the Rival 3 fight, but just go down to the Lighthouse and you're good to go there. And then Morty really isn't very hard in spite of the fact that he's the ghost type gym leader, because Hypno can simply tank the damage. Even if he were to use Shadow Ball, he wasn't going to one-shot us, so we simply managed to get through. Now let's check in on Exeggutor, another kind of tanky psychic type, and see how it does in this section. So Exeggutor is coming into this section with Confusion, Hypnosis, and Barrage. We can learn Headbutt here, and we can learn Nightmare, but that's basically it as far as TMs that we can add to this Pokemon. And this is a Pokemon that doesn't really have any level up moves. We will get Stomp at level 19, but that's basically it. Stomp, of course, is better than Barrage since it actually deals a regular amount of damage, but we might end up adding on Nightmare in order to get through this section. And just a quick note, I said 96 hours in the last section about how long it would take to reset for max DVs, assuming you were doing 5 seconds per reset. I actually misremembered the calculation. It's actually 91 hours, but the point remains the same, that whenever you watch a run with max DVs, saying the amount of time that it takes to beat the game with max DVs is kind of ridiculous to me, because you should just take whatever their final result is and add 91 hours to it, and that is what is the practical, non-cheating, non-RNG manipulation case for getting the max DVs with a Pokemon. Anyway, I personally find that very interesting. I'm not sure if anybody else does, but yeah. Max TVs are kind of ridiculous as an assumption, to be perfectly honest, but we are using them here so that we can prove once and for all whether or not the Pokemon is even capable of minimum battles within any sort of reason, because obviously if you can't do it on max DVs, you couldn't do it on lower DVs. So now it's time to take on Rival 3 with our Exeggutor. We got through the Cumulus Girls no problem, and here we're obviously slower than Houndour, but I'm still just going to see the range. Confusion will knock it out after it uses Curse. Out comes the Quilava. It's faster, and I think we need to put this Pokemon to sleep. I just want to see what the damage range is here with Confusion, and this appears to be a 3-hit KO. Now we go down on this attempt due to Curse, but that just makes me think this is a good spot for the Quick Claw. Exeggutor is slow enough that we're never going to be able to outspeed against the Haunter, but it might be possible yet again that if we outspeed, we might just get the one-shot. So let's try this a few more times. And here, sure enough, when we get the Quick Claw to activate, it's a 1-hit KO on the Haunter. We have no Curse now going to the Quilava. It goes Smokescreen on us, but we still managed to land the Hypnosis. And now I'm going to go for the Confusion. We just need to land 3 of these and we will knock this Pokemon out. We get a miss there, but we survive the Ember. We get burned, however, which is pretty bad luck. Magnemite comes out next, and this also appears to be a 3-hitter. He goes for Sonic Boom there, and Sonic Boom will do us in. Still, this appears to be a perfectly winnable fight, provided we get the Quick Claw on the first Haunter. This time we get much better luck getting through the Quilava on full health. That brings out Magnemite, of course, but we get it to sleep, and now Confusion is going to be a 3-hitter, but since we have higher special attack and it has lower special defense, I think Confusion is the play here. We get a miss because we did take a smoke screen from that Quilava. Still, we knock that Pokemon out. That brings out Zubat. I'm just going to go for Confusion and get the 1-hit KO. So this time we beat the Rival with no damage taken whatsoever. It took 7 resets there, but considering we're using the Quick Claw on the first Pokemon, that's really not bad. And we're able to progress now in the challenge. And here I think that Confusion's going to be perfectly fine against all the randos in the gym, so let's make our way straight to Morty, where I think it's going to be time to use that Mint Berry, but let's just see. So here, let's get into the Morty fight now that I've got the Mint Berry on, and the strategy I think is pretty simple. Here against the first Gastly, we're just going Confusion and getting the 1-hit KO. Haunter, I'm just going to stick with Confusion as well. It curses, but we knock it out after that. Out comes the Gengar. It goes for Shadow Ball and does really good damage, and lowered our special defense. So it's pretty clear that we're going to have to put that Pokemon to sleep in order to get through. And this may not be a Mint Berry spot. This might actually be a Goldberry spot. So I'm just going to take the gold berry off of my Machop and give it to my Exeggutor here. Since we're taking super effective damage, that gold berry might allow us one additional turn to survive. So back into the fight, we'll still one-shot the Gastly every time, and we're just never going to outspeed any of the Haunters here, so we'll still get cursed. That's perfectly fine with me. Now on the Gengar, I'm going for Hypnosis. It missed its Hypnosis. That allows us to simply put it to sleep, and it's going to be a 2-hit KO with Confusion, so we get the win on that Pokemon. Now out comes the final Haunter. It goes Nightshade, I go Confusion and get the 1-hit KO. So Exeggutor gets through Morty without really that much difficulty, and Exeggutor basically Quick Claw strats, that's all you need, and you're good to go in this section. So that of course adds 2 more Pokemon to that pass column, and we've got 3 legitimate challengers left plus 1 more channel member pick. Let's just get into them one by one. I'm going to start off with the Skarmory since it is the steel flying type, and then we'll look at the other 3 Pokemon since they're all technically ground types, though Piloswine is a ground ice Pokemon. Still, they should be a pretty interesting comparison, I think, but Skarmory comes first. And Skarmory is coming in with Peck, Leer, Sand Attack, and Mud Slap. It did manage to get through with the Gold Berry still on at the end of that last section. I'm going to just take that item off though, because I don't think we need it for a while. Now this is another one of these Pokemon that just really doesn't have a great moveset for this section of the game. We will learn Swift at level 19 and Agility at level 25, but really that's all that we're getting here. And given that we're in this low level up group, I don't think we even get to level 25 until the very end. So really not a great situation. We're going to just have to hope that Peck is enough for now. Now learning Swift, I'm going to forget Sand Attack since we have Mud Slap. Most cases we can use Mud Slap as well as Sand Attack. Obviously there aren't that many flying type Pokemon that we have to deal with in the near future, but still we're going to have to hope that we can find a way through the rest of even these Kumono girls, since the Flareon is going to be pretty rough and I think the Jolteon's kind of rough, but let's just see. So here Swift is technically our best move, but it just simply didn't do enough damage. So in that case, I think we have to go Mud Slap, hoping to get some accuracy drops. Still, it's pretty clear that we're not getting through the Jolteon, and if we're struggling there, we're also not going to get through the Flareon. So I'm going to make my way down south to the Lighthouse and see if I can get through those trainers as an attempt to basically make that fight a little bit easier. So after going down to the Lighthouse, of course, we gain a level, and the question is just how do we do now against the Flareon and Jolteon? Flareon we're faster than, so we can pretty easily knock that Pokemon out and get to level 21 here. Now the question is, how are we matching up against Jolteon? If it's faster, it knocks us out unless we crit. Otherwise, we will be able to knock it out, assuming it doesn't get a crit against us. And here it is still faster than us, so yeah, we actually do half damage here though after our level up. So in theory, we can actually win now. That's nice, but man, that fight is really not great for this Pokemon, and really it seems like just a couple points in special defense change that fight pretty significantly. But with that done, we are now in a situation where we're in a speed tie against the Haunter on Rival 3's team, and we might need a critical hit in order to knock that Pokemon out after it uses Curse, or we could win 2 speed ties, it uses Curse and we knock it out that way. But I'm really worried about what we're going to do against both the Rival's Quilava and against the Magnemite. Yes, we have Mud Slap, but it's not going to be that strong. So this could be really, really tough here. So first things first, we've got to deal with this Haunter. I'm going Peck. It goes Lick against me there and paralyzes me. So obviously we're not going to win this first one, I don't think. Still, we managed to get through. We'll go on to the Magnemite, which uses the Supersonic, and we're cursed and paralyzed. We can see that Magnemite will be a 2-hit KO with Mud Slap if we can get there, ideally on better health. So this time instead we get cursed from the Haunter. We get licked after that, but it does not manage to paralyze us. So we can move on to the Magnemite where we do decent damage. It goes Thunder Shock. We Mud Slap. So we take that Pokemon down, but now we're to the Quilava with Curse on, and Ember is simply going to destroy us at that point. I went for Mud Slap just to see if I could get the miss, but it wouldn't have mattered. We were simply going to go down anyway. So is there any possible way of getting through this one? Well, Well, clearly Peck isn't enough. Mud Slap shouldn't be enough to get us through that Haunter either. We would need a critical hit Mud Slap here against the Magnemite. Granted, it does miss its Thundershock this time, so we have better HP as we go to the Quilava. Mud Slap would be a 5-hit KO on this Pokemon, but maybe, just maybe, we could get a bunch of misses. Instead, we get Ember and Burned, which basically means we lose this attempt. So I think we need a move that will actually knock out the Haunter faster. The problem is that we have really low special attack, and the only new move that we could learn to hit the Haunter is gonna be that Hidden Power Dart. There's nothing else that is currently available to us to hit that Pokemon, because we don't get Fly until after we beat Chuck. We're also not in a situation where we can just use like rare candies to get to some sort of new move. So I think the only possible strategy is to go for the Hidden Power here. The hope here very simply being that maybe, just maybe, the Hidden Power Dart being 70 base power, being super effective, maybe with a critical hit could one-shot against that Haunter, allowing us to get through with no curse. Barring that, this one might just be impossible. So here, let's just see what Hidden Power does. It went Lick on us, and Hidden Power does not quite do half against the Haunter. It licks a second time though, and that does allow us to actually knock that Pokemon out without getting cursed, but we're paralyzed, so we're already in bad shape and we get confused. We Mud Slap here on the Magnemite, but it's not going to matter. We simply go down. This time instead we get Curse from the Haunter, and we can see that Hidden Power just barely misses the range to one-shot this Pokemon after that. We do manage to win the next Speed Flip and knock it out, however. Here we can Mud Slap on Magnemite. We get a miss. That's perfectly fine. Now to the Quilava, where again Swift is our best move. Hidden Power is just going to be weaker because of our much lower special attack. Let's see the range with Swift at least. A critical hit did 30 damage. So this is going to be a 5-hit KO with this move, and we simply get destroyed. So now I think we have to go even more broken. The only other thing that we could learn is Max Power Return. Now, of course, the entire logic here is that Max Power Return is significantly stronger than Swift, so maybe it allows us to knock opponents out with a better range, but we're going to have to see if this can possibly work out or not. Let's keep testing. This time we actually get the range to knock out the Haunter after it uses Curse, so we take no curse damage that time. We stick with Mud Slap on the Magnemite because it's 4 times super effective, but we get confused, and that's basically the end of that one. Still, we get to Quilava. I want to see the range with Return if I can. A critical hit, nearly one-shot, 5 HP remaining, so this is going to be a 3-hitter with this move, a 2-hitter with a crit, but we simply don't get it that time and we go down. So against Haunter, we're hoping to win the Speed Flip, and that when it curses, we're able to simply knock it out after that without taking any damage. Mud Slap again on the Magnemite. We really need a miss, and especially not to be confused, or at least not hit ourselves in confusion. So we get to the Quilava this time on really good health. We go Return. We did about half there. He uses Ember, but we survive. We hit Return again, knocking that Pokemon out. That brings us to the Zubat. We're going Return. We do get the 1-hitter with a crit there. So 1 crit in that battle. We finally managed to beat the rival, but man, oh man, that was rough. That was not pretty at all. So while we can call it a win, you really don't want to do that, you know. this is brutal trying to get through this. Still, we can now go into the gym. I think the best play is to go Hidden Power here and just try to knock out all these Pokemon. This Skarmory is obviously now in the OP unreasonable TMs category, but at least it is progressing this far and has a chance to get through this section. So that brings us to Morty himself. I think this is a good spot for the Mint Berry, of course, so that we can hopefully recover from one of the hypnosises. And now we're just going to have to get in this fight and see if it works or not. So Morty attempt number 1, I'm just going to go Hidden Power on the first Gastly and get the 1-hit KO. We'll stick with the same strategy here on the Haunter. It's also a 1-hitter. Might have been a crit. I wasn't paying attention. Now on the Gengar, we wake up thanks to the Mint Berry, and I'm going for Mud Slap, trying to reduce this Pokemon's accuracy. Unfortunately, it puts us to sleep again, and now is going Dream Eater, and there's just nothing that we can do while we're asleep. We finally wake up, but at this point, I think it can just do anything and take us down. Its accuracy is really low though, so we do manage to knock Gengar out, and we can learn Agility. Now, via level up. In theory, this is actually a really good move because it will allow us to outspeed opponents since Skarmory isn't super fast. The question is, will it do anything for us in practice? For now, I'm going to forget Peck because I don't really think I need that move. Return is always going to be stronger. Like, even when Peck is super effective, it's basically the same power as Return. So yeah, let's go ahead and just add agility there. That brings out the final Haunter. We're going to go Hidden Power here. It's a 2-hitter though, and Nightshade takes us down. So we got to get to the final Haunter with more HP than that if we're going to win or get a crit at the very end. But now we get back to the Gengar. Let's just see if we can get better ranges here as it goes for the Hypnosis. We can wake up from 1 with the Mint Berry, and we're just hoping that the Mud Slaps take its accuracy down so low that it can't land any more Hypnosises. Unfortunately, it was all the way down to 3 HP when it managed to land a hit on us. We do finally wake up and knock it out, but after the level up, we're still not going to have enough HP, so this comes down to either a crit or we lose. We do in fact get the critical hit though, so all right, we'll take it. Morty goes down on the next attempt. That was pretty lucky, but it's clearly a winnable fight. It's just a matter of whether or not he hits you with Hypnosis. That's why I'm using the Mud Slap there rather than the Hidden Power, even though the Hidden Power I think would take him down faster. It's because I'm trying to get him to not be able to hit me with the Hypnosis. Turns out that it works in the end, one way or the other. It's not that unreasonable at least. Still, if you just get through Gengar with a little bit more health, you don't even need the critical hit on the last Haunter. That's just because I got put to sleep when he was almost just ever so nearly knocked out. So we'll take that. We'll simply move on. So with that Pokemon done, we're down to our last 3 Pokemon. We've got Piloswine, Donphan, and of course Phanpy. I'm going to do Piloswine first and just see how that Pokemon goes. And Piloswine's coming in here with Horn Attack, Powder Snow, Endure, and Mud Slap. And here the only new move that we can really learn is Headbutt. Otherwise, we have to go into OPTMs like Blizzard and Hidden Power. So we're going to have to hope that basically this moveset is enough. Maybe Headbutt if we need to flinch opponents, but that's about it. And now Piloswine also has some issues here when we come up against the Kimono Girls because it's going to be weak to 2 of them. We're going to have to see if we can manage to get through this section as well. Now we get through the Flareon just fine, but I'm mostly worried about the Vaporeon since it's not weak against ground, and we're going to be taking super effective damage for a lot more turns since it's bulky. We have to hope that Horn Attack is enough here. Otherwise, the strategy is probably to add on Headbutt. Here we get a critical hit Watergun from it, causing us to lose the first attempt, but otherwise this one does look winnable because it appears to be a 3-hit KO, and we are faster than this Pokemon. So we do get it down on this second attempt, allowing Piloswine to move on, but now the question is, how do we do against the rival? We do have a same type attack bonus in Mud Slap that we can use against that Haunter, and we also have a chance to freeze with Powder Snow. So both of those could be possibilities, but I think the Quick Claw is going to be the strategy here. So we're probably not going to one-hit KO with Mud Slap, but let's use the Quick Claw anyway just to see the range on that Haunter and see if we need to go down south to train more or not. Here we do manage to get the Quick Claw to activate and get a critical hit, and it still does not one-shot the Haunter. This is going to be a 2-hit KO, but it goes Lick and then Curse. That's perfectly fine with me because we would have hit it twice anyway. But now we make our way to Croconaw, and I think the strategy here is actually to go for the Powder Snow, trying to get the freeze. That being said, Powder Snow does basically nothing, and we get knocked out in 2 turns by Watergun plus Curse. Still, let's just try this again because I do want to see the range with our Horn Attack here. Here, Horn Attack did 20 damage, so this is a 4-hit KO without crit. We get a critical hit the next turn, but it doesn't matter. Even with a crit, Curse plus Watergun simply takes us down. Now, the question is, does Headbutt give us an advantage here? Obviously, we could get the chance to flinch against that Croconaw, and that could actually make a massive difference because not only is this move just a little bit stronger, but the flinch will mean that we don't get hit by Watergun, and then maybe a crit is enough to get through this fight. And it turns out that the Mud Slap is a range here on the Haunter. It just depends. Sometimes we knock it out after Curse and other times we do not. This time we do get the range to knock it out after Curse, and now Headbutt is looking like it might be a 3 to 4 hit KO here depending on the Croconaw. It goes for Rage against us, and we get the flinch, allowing us to knock that Pokemon out. Magnemite comes out next. I'm just going to go Mud Slap and get the 1-hit KO, and that brings out the final Zubat. I go for Headbutt. It's not a 1-hitter, it's a 2-hitter, so we have to get a crit somewhere in this fight if we're going to get through. It's honestly going to be very, very close even in that case. But now that we know that it doesn't really matter if we have the Quick Claw on or not, I think the actual strategy is to give ourselves the Gold Berry here. We still had it left over from our Machop from the previous section, and the Gold Berry will allow us to heal a lot of HP, and that could actually make a massive difference in this one. So here we now know that we won't outspeed against the Haunter. This time it licks and paralyzes us too. I think we have to reset in that case because we really want to get Curse and then knock it out with the Mud Slap on the first turn. So we take that Pokemon down. Now we can go into Headbutt on the Croconaw, just hoping to get the flinches. But even if we don't, we can heal up once with the Gold Berry, giving us just another chance to deal some damage. Doesn't work out that time, but that is the basic strategy. This time we are getting the flinches on the Croconaw. The issue is that we need it to flinch on the turn that we are below half health so that we can heal up. Now this time I actually managed to freeze the Croconaw, and I simply did that so that I would be able to hopefully just whittle it down with Headbutt. And we are in fact getting through on much better health. That brings out the Magnemite, where we can still go for the Mud Slap to knock it out. And clearly before, when I went for Headbutt, that was a mistake. We need to go Powder Snow on the Zubat. It's still a 2-hit KO. It goes for Bite, but we survive, and that allows us to finally knock out the rival. So while it wasn't pretty by any means, we did manage to win that fight, and we are able to move on now in this challenge. And here I think Stab Mud Slap is basically going to be enough for all the randos in the gym, so let's just make our way straight to Morty himself. And here of course I'm going to give a Mint Berry as we go into this fight, since we're going to be outsped by basically everything. Let's just see if Piloswine can find a way through. So against Morty, I'm going to lead off with Mud Slap. Of course, it's not a 1-hitter on the first Gastly, it's a 2-hit KO. He paralyzes me with Lake and then curses. Out comes the Gengar, it's going for Shadow Ball, and we can see that this is basically a 4-hit KO with our Mud Slap. So this could be terrible. We're going to try this a few more times, but clearly we need to not be paralyzed here. That time we actually get the range to one-shot the first Gastly. The Haunter comes out and goes Nightshade. We just go Mud Slap. We get a critical hit and knock it out in 2. That brings out the Gengar now. It goes for Hypnosis. We heal with the Mint Berry. We are using Mud Slap both to lower its accuracy and to deal damage. It turns out to be a 4-hit KO. We just barely missed the 3-hit range, but we knock it out. That brings out the Haunter. It goes Curse, and we simply knock it out from there. So Morty took a couple attempts, but he was actually not that bad once we weren't paralyzed and of course cursed in that battle. That of course now brings us to Donphan. As mentioned before, this is the Pokemon that nearly got eliminated on Rival 2, so I'm really nervous if it's going to be able to get through Rival 3 here. On Rival 2, the whole situation was that when I was testing originally, I had forgotten to record. I talked about this back on the episode where it showed in the Bugsy section, and it turned out that after tons and tons of attempts, I simply couldn't get the Pokemon through. So I had eliminated it from the challenge. However, then I realized that I hadn't been recording, so I went back and redid the section again and just managed to get through on like the first attempt with insane luck. And as I've said, if I get it within a reasonable number of attempts, even if it's lucky, I will let the Pokemon move on. But the whole reason for that is because I expect if a Pokemon is a pretender, it's going to hit a wall somewhere. And Donphan might just be that Pokemon here. I think it's going to do fine against the Kimono Girls since it's only technically weak against one of them, and we've got Horn Attack and Stab Mud Slap. The real question is gonna be that rival, because I'm just not sure if we have anything good for it. The main thing that we do have, of course, is Rollout, and Rollout strats we have seen work quite a bit, so that's probably my go-to is the Defense Curl Rollout strat if I have to guess. But it might not work out because of the weaknesses of this Pokemon, especially because that special defense is so much weaker than its other stats. Still, we get through all of the Kimono Girls with no issue, so I'm just going to go ahead and heal up. and we'll go in with our moveset as it is right now. But if we struggle, I think Rollout is the play. Otherwise, I mean, we can learn things like Strength and Headbutt, but obviously none of those moves will help us against Ghosts, which is most likely going to be the issue here. We're also incredibly slow, so I'm going to slap on the Quick Claw here, and let's just see if somehow, some way we can get this to go. So first things first, we want to test the range against this Houndour with Mud Slap. So whether it curses or not doesn't really matter. We just want to see, okay, we do knock it out after curse at least, so we are doing at least half damage. Maybe a critical hit with the Quick Claw would one-shot, but we're not going to reset for that sort of luck. Out comes the Bayleaf now. I'm going to go Horn Attack, and that did about a third. This is going to be a 3-hit KO. Razor Leaf with a critical hit does massive damage though, and it's pretty likely that we're going to get knocked out there. Still, I'm going to try this just a couple more times to see. This time instead we get Reflect from the Bayleaf, which is kind of bad, and then we get a Razor Leaf miss, but on such low health, Razor Leaf will simply knock us out. So I'm going to go down to the Lighthouse just to see if adding a couple extra levels helps me out at all here, specifically in terms of the range with our Horn Attack, because I think that maybe, just maybe, with a level or two, the Horn Attack will deal enough damage to get a slightly better range on that Bayleaf. Not sure, obviously, until I test it, but that's at least my logic for going down. We also have to keep in mind that we could upgrade the Strength here, which would be significantly stronger than Horn Attack, and that could be a strategy that actually allows us to get through. In fact, we could just forget Flail in order to learn that move, since Flail is so dependent on exactly what our opponents do and exactly how much HP we have, whereas Strength doesn't really care about any of that. And because we have a strong enough move, I think, to just one-shot against the Magnemite, and Strength will probably one-shot against the Zubat, Strength might actually be the solution to this section here. Still, we have to test it, so let's get back into this fight and just see. So here, 2 levels higher, we're still going Mud Slap to just knock out the Houndour after it goes for the curse. Now Horn Attack on the Bayleaf did 26 damage, so this is definitely going to be a 3-hit KO, and a crit will knock that Pokemon out. So let's just try this a couple more times. So here we do get a critical hit with the Horn Attack, and then Bayleaf misses Poison Powder, allowing us to knock it out on really good health. We can Horn Attack now on the Zubat. Bite doesn't do that much, we simply knock it out, and out comes the Magnemite. We'll just go Mud Slap and get the 4 times super effective same type move to just one-shot that Pokemon, and we can progress in the game. No rollout required. That being said, rollout might become required as we progress, so we'll just have to see. So that of course brings us now into the gym, where once again Mud Slap should be perfectly fine for all these randos. Let's make our way straight to Morty himself. So now it's Donphan's chance to fight against Morty. Obviously we're going to give the Mint Berry here, and let's just see if this works or not. So first up, we've got the Gastly. We go Mud Slap. That is an easy 1-hit KO on that Pokemon. Here we are slower than the first Houndour, so nothing we can do there. We take a Nightshade. It's going to take 2 hits to knock this Pokemon out with Mud Slap. Out next is Gengar. He hits the first Hypnosis, but we heal with the Mint Berry. Our Mud Slap did really good damage here, and we lowered its accuracy, and we knock it out on the next turn. So we get to level 27 as we get to the final Houndour. We lower its accuracy. It fails to hit with the Hypnosis, and just like that, we win on the first attempt with Donphan. So Piloswine and Donphan both managed to get through this section. They're both not super consistent by any means against the rival. They do reasonably well against Morty though, and now we're ready to move on in the game with these. So that brings us to our final Pokemon of today. Let's check in on our channel member pick, Phanpy. So I'd like to give a very big thank you to relatively new channel member, though he's been waiting on this for about a month, BChill817, and his Phanpy named Kismet. Not sure if I pronounced that right, so tell me in the comments if I missed it. But of course, this Phanpy was coming in trying to beat the rival number 2 fight with Tackle, Growl, Defense Curl, and Mud Slap. However, we are going to upgrade its moveset with Ancient Power, Body Slam, and Water Gun, moves that are all technically available by breeding with the Wooper line, though we know that if it really wants to be as strong as a Wooper, we need to be using that Defense Curl rollout right here. But let's go ahead and start out with this moveset and just see if it allows us to progress. So first, we're going to test this strategy out on Bugsy, where Ancient Power is now a super effective move at least, and in theory gives us a chance to get a Omni boost. Still, we get poisoned in this one. I think we're probably losing this first attempt. Still, we're doing good damage with the Ancient Power. We make it all the way to the final Scyther, where we do really good damage and get an Omni boost here. I'm going to switch into Body Slam, and we really just need to get one more hit here, and we do in fact beat Bugsy on the first attempt. And with that, we gain a little bit of XP, and we're ready to go ahead and try our hand at rival number 2. Now, the whole issue here, of course, is that we are weak against the Bayleaf and its Razor Leaf. I don't think we outspeed here, so we might need an Omni boost in order to actually make this one go. Let's test it out. So first things first, against this Gastly, I'm going to go for the Ancient Power. It's going to take 2 hits from this move, but then it uses Spite to use up all my PP, and then it licks me to paralyze me, so that's terrible. We make it to the Bayleaf though. It goes Reflect turn 1, we paralyze it, and now it goes Razor Leaf, and we're simply not dealing enough damage with our move. Let's try this one again though, because maybe we can get better luck. Here we get a Hypnosis Miss turn 1 from Gastly, and then it uses the Spite, so really no change there. We still get Reflect from the Bayleaf, but this time we paralyze it, and we're just going to keep going for our Body Slam on it, but we can see pretty clearly we're just getting 2-shot by Razor Leaf even without a crit. Now this raises a slightly different question then. What if we replaced one of these moves? Like, instead of Watergun, what if we just give the TM move Rollout? Because if we're already breeding, we could also just trade to another cartridge to get the Rollout TM. And the reason I'm interested in this is because maybe Defense Curl Rollout builds up on the Gastly, and then we're able to just one-shot against the Bayleaf. Let's test this out and see. So here I am going to set up Defense Curl and then go into Rollout. Here we get a critical hit to one-shot on the first Gastly. That's not actually ideal, because then we do not one-shot here on the Bayleaf. Let's try this again, hoping that we actually build up a little bit more. And in fact, we might not want to use the Defense Curl. We might want to just go straight for Rollout, and obviously we just have to reset if we get paralyzed. So here we do manage to knock out the Gastly. We get to Bayleaf. It critical hits us with Razor Leaf. We need to see the range without the crit. Back to Bayleaf again. It still crits us. Come on. This time we get Reflect from the Bayleaf and then a Razor Leaf, but we actually knock it out this time. We get to level 16 as the Zubat comes out, and Rollout finishes it. So it turns out that Rollout is a strategy that works there. It's not super consistent. You're going to need a little bit of luck to not get paralyzed by the first Gastly as you're setting up. But once you get enough buildup, you can in fact manage the win. In the final run, I actually used Defense Curl into Rollout because it takes 2 turns to knock out the Gastly without a crit. And by that point, I think we would have one-shot against the Bayleaf if we had simply not gotten Reflect. Still, it worked out either way. We managed to get the win. And now that we've managed to get Phanpy through rival number 2, it's time to move on to the Whitney section and see if it would have been able to get through this part with these upgraded moves. So here against the Clefairy, I'm going to set up Defense Curl once. It goes for Double Slap, and now I'm going to go for the Rollout, basically hoping to build up and knock this Pokemon out. Unfortunately, we miss a Rollout here. Still, we managed to get through to the Miltank. It goes for Rollout on us. We go for Rollout on it. It's just a battle of Rollouts, but of course we win because we started setting up earlier on the Clefairy, plus we used Defense Curl. It was never in question to beat Whitney with this Pokemon. Of course, we could kind of expect that with anything that knows Rollout because we know that's really Whitney's Achilles heel, but now we're able to move on in the game and see how this Pokemon would have performed against Rival 3 and Morty. Now, I think the strategies are very similar to what we did with Donphan. Of course, we don't know the move Bud Slap. We haven't learned it on this Pokemon. We might have to add that move on in order to get through certain sections, but for now, I'm going to come into the Kimono Girls as I am and just rely on the current moveset that I have. While Rollout isn't perfectly consistent, we did manage to get through the Kimono Girls with just that move, and now we can move on to the rival, where I think obviously we're not going to have any chance of outspeeding against the Haunter, but maybe we don't need to. Maybe we go Quick Claw hope to be able to set up the defense curl before it damages us, and then just go for the rollout, hoping that it takes us the rest of the way. Let's try this and see. So here we set up defense curl. Unfortunately, it cursed us this time before we could set up, and we get paralyzed, which probably means this one's already over, but 2 hits knocks out the Haunter. Out comes the Bayleaf. Of course, Razor Leaf will simply end us, so we really want to see if we can manage to get it when we don't get paralyzed. This time we get to the Bayleaf without paralysis, but it's still faster than us, and we simply get knocked out. Now, we should be able to go down to the lighthouse to gain a couple more levels. So that's what I'm going to do. Basically, with the logic being that I want to be able to outspeed there against the Bayleaf if at all possible. So of course, going down there to the lighthouse got me up to level 23 since we're in the medium fast level up group, giving us access to an additional damage rounding threshold, as well as boosting our stats a fair little bit. Still, I don't know that we outspeed against the Bayleaf. Let me just double check the range here. And here it turns out we are in a speed tie, but we actually survived the Razor Leaf, and then we just barely missed KOing this Pokemon. It's possible that that is a range, so we're going to have to try this a few more times. The other factor here is that, of course, if we get a critical hit, it will just one-shot the Bayleaf, meaning we get through that Pokemon. Zubat comes out and gets completely destroyed. That brings out Magnemite, and since Rollout is all the way built up with the defense curl, it is enough to knock that Pokemon out as well, getting us to level 24. So just as I was about to just explain hypothetically getting a critical hit, it worked out. Clearly, I understand the RNG of this game better than anybody. I've entered the Matrix, if the Matrix were Pokemon Gen 2. Like, I swear to God, yes, I can manipulate a lot of things on the back end with Game Hook. One thing I have not figured out ever, not that I would even try, is how to force critical hits. In fact, I tried to do the opposite with Game Hook. I tried to force it to never give a critical hit for a run that I was doing previously on RBY Pokemon challenges. I could not get it to work. I really wanted it to work to eliminate that kind of luck from a run, and I just could not figure it out. If anybody does know a way to eliminate all critical hits from the game, please let me know. Anyway, now we can simply get into the gym where Rollout should take out all of these rando trainers, and with that, then let's make our way straight to Morty himself, and hopefully Rollout will prove to be enough. Now, via level up, we could learn Takedown, and while Takedown is technically stronger in terms of power than Body Slam, I think Body Slam is the better move. It doesn't have recoil and can get paralysis, so I'm just going to keep Body Slam on the moveset and not learn Takedown here. And here, we're not going to outspeed anything with our Phanpy, but I think that's fine. I think we just go in with the Mint Berry here in order to hopefully recover from a sleep and just then see if we can actually manage to build up the Rollout enough to get the sweep. Let's see if this works or not. So Morty attempt number 1, I'm just going Defense Curl here as he curses me. That's perfectly fine. We will now go into Rollout and knock out the Gastly. Haunter's out next. It goes for Nightshade. We get the one-hitter though. Haunter comes out next. We get another Nightshade, but we knock that Pokemon out. That means Gengar lands the Hypnosis, but Rollout's completely built up at that point, and we had the Mint Berry, so he could do nothing. He simply got destroyed by Phanpy. So be chill, 817. Thank you so much for saving this Pokemon, and we have taken a Phanpy that couldn't even beat Bugsy in Rival 2, and now transformed it into a Pokemon that gets through Morty on minimum battles. As mentioned before, we could also add on the move Mud Slap at some point moving forward. For now, this moveset is fine, I think. Of course, Defense Curl Rollout could be just incredibly overpowered as we go through this run. I definitely think we're going to want to start out trying to beat Price though, then go on to Chuck and Jasmine. Jasmine might prove to just be way too much for this Pokemon. I honestly do not know. I think it would make a big difference if we learned Dig, but because we don't, I mean, we will have at least a decent range on the 2 Magnemites, but I'm not sure about that Steelix. Anyway, that does it for this Pokemon. And with that, we have busted out like what, 23 Pokemon in this episode? This is insane how long this is. This video is going to be way too long. Telling you guys right now that when we get to the next section with 3 gym leaders, I'm not going to be able to do videos this long. But with that being said, we have now completed another episode. We're up to 78 Pokemon getting through this section. And now it's time to look ahead to the next episode. We are coming in with tons more Pokemon. Of course, we've got our Marowak, we've got Hitmonlee, Hitmonchan, that means Hitmontop is coming in too, Lickitung, Seadra, which means Kingdra is coming in, we've got Seaking, Starmie, Mr. Mime, Scyther, and Scizor, Jinx, Electabuzz, Magmar, which means we will also do Magby, and Standler to round out the whole set. We're going to have to add in some more Pokemon, of course, in order to test this out properly. I think that Weezing and Rhydon are going to have to come in. I apparently forgot to do Weezing this episode. Sorry guys, we will get that in the next one. Pinsir obviously has to get in on the action. And I think with Pinsir in on the action, it's also a good chance to get that Heracross, since we can get these bug types out. Finally, Elekid will come in because of the fact that it is the unevolved form of Electabuzz that's going to give us just already a ton of Pokemon. Apologies to you guys for how long this episode took to get out, but considering how many Pokemon they are and life in general, I just wasn't able to get it done in a reasonable amount of time. I'm very sorry for that, but this one will be coming as soon as I can get it done, and we're getting very close to finishing this section. But like I said, in the next section where we're up against Chuck, Jasmine, and Price, I'm not going to be able to do like 25 Pokemon an episode. It's going to take way too much time to produce all of these videos. Right now, on average, it takes me about 6 to 8 hours to record these, and then about the same amount of time to edit them, on top of having a full-time job, 2 part-time jobs, a whole other channel, and a baby. It's definitely just been a little bit too much for me right now, if I'm being perfectly honest. Still, I'm going to keep grinding for you guys. I hope that you will keep watching. If you enjoy the content, consider joining the channel membership. And if you are really enjoying the content, watch another video, because that's what YouTube really wants. Everybody who tells you like, comment, subscribe, they're all liars. That doesn't do anything for the algorithm. The only thing that does something for the algorithm is when you go back and rewatch some of these videos to see how we got here. Anyway, appreciate ya. I will see you in the next one.